You are comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the Unholy Trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government.
I am back, comfortably zoned. I'm the Zigzag Man. We're in Alameda, California, Northern California. And we're at the 420 Studios, joined by Kevin Rooney. Made such an incredible hit last week's show. Thank you very much for coming back. We wanted to clear up a few things that we didn't get to talk about. And welcome back, Kevin.
Thanks, Ralph. Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it seemed like you enjoyed it, and
I like to talk. I like to talk. I don't like to write or work, but I do like to talk.
Right. I don't like to work. I don't like to work, and I don't like to work. But I'm great. One of my heroes when I was a kid was Boris Betnoff. I don't know if you remember Boris Betnoff.
No.
Starok Natasha. He was the Rocky and the Rocky.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So
Moose and Squirrel.
Moose and Squirrel, right?
Yeah.
So, what did you grow up watching on television when you were a kid?
Well, let's see. We used to watch around the dinner table. We would watch some stuff like Mary Tyler Moore, and I didn't watch a lot because we just weren't allowed to watch much stuff. And there wasn't that much on, to tell you the truth. I mean, like on Sunday mornings, I remember at Dismal, there was bowling and there was Davy and Goliath, that cartoon, that religious cartoon, which even at that age I knew was just a crock. You know, I just said, this is it. Baby, oh baby.
The whole ball of wax, no matter, you could present it in a cartoon, you could have a burning bush, you could have, a carpenter on a tree.
All that stuff, all the fairy tales coming all the way down to us. So I didn't really watch that much. If it was a game on, maybe,
Did you come from a church-going family?
No, I didn't, because my father was a lapsed Catholic, and my mother was kind of Christian Scientist, kind of a Protestant, kind of a Mary Baker Eddy. So we didn't really attend church. I got some training, so-called, but I didn't really attend. My father dropped out of the church because his mother, who was a devout Catholic, and father would not come to the wedding, my father and mother's wedding, because my mother was a Protestant. That's how crazy it was.
Yeah, it's not just in their generation, in my generation.
So he dropped out and he didn't care about it.
Yeah, the crazy shit continues. I mean, he
thought it was pretty open-minded about religion. I remember he told me one day when I was 19 or 20, he says, listen, I don't care what you grow up to believe in, whether it's anything you want, Buddhist, Catholic, Catholic, Protestant, anything you want. And I said, how about Buddhist? And he went, what? So he had his little two paths in his head as well. But no, I didn't grow up with any kind of real religious training, and I was always creeped out by it when I went down to visit my grandmother, my father's side. She always had those little hanging bronze statues of Jesus on the cross, or the praying hands that were bleeding. And if I stayed in my uncle's room, he would leave for me to stay there, visit overnight once in a while. And he had the little statue of Jesus by the bed, and I always remember waking up and thinking I saw that Jesus was gone. Wondering where he was, running around the room, that kind of thing. But I'm not religious that way. I don't like organized religion. I think it causes a lot of problems.
I've talked about this on the show before. I don't care if people could pray, they can do whatever they want, but if they have a middleman It takes away from it. It puts responsibility on that middleman that they're not equipped to handle because they're merely human, and it shows through in every organized religion. There's craziness.
Well, it helps some people, I suppose, in times of, if they want to believe certain things that their loved one's not gone, he's somewhere else, he's up in but it also grants a license and a justification to people to do a lot of things to other people in the name of, we're going to keep these gay people from this, we're going to keep these people from that, we're going to make sure we put the screws down on all kinds of behavioral, especially sexual behavior, and like, for instance, pot, we were talking about pot. A lot of the problem, I think, with pot is that there are people who simply believe that it's bad, and their problem with pot is not that it actually is scientifically provably bad. It doesn't actually affect you in any real way in the way alcohol does. When you look in a physician's handbook and you connect one kind of drug with alcohol, there are many terrible side effects to connecting alcohol with all kinds of legal drugs over the counter and whatnot. There's no effect with alcohol. They always say, there's a car accident, we had some beers, and we found a joint in the car. Like the joint in the car was the problem with the accident, not the beers.
Exactly.
He had a joint. The only way a person smoking a pot can cause a traffic accident is by going so slow the guy drunk behind him rear ends him. That's how that happens.
Exactly.
In a pool game, you don't smash your pool cue over your friend's head because you've been smoking pot.
No, you're
actually having too much fun laughing, watching the balls if you're smoking pot. So, but that's a religious thing because I think people believe that pot somehow induces a kind of philosophical or religious trance in the smokers that we don't like. Like people smoking pot will refuse to build a nuclear reactor on an Indian burial ground. They're just not into that. Whereas people drinking, hey, they're drunk. Let's build a nuclear plant on the Indian burial ground. Go ahead. So I think it's a religious belief.
Introspective. If you become at all introspective, it confuses and scares people. And
there's just no reason not to smoke pot. It doesn't have any effect, not any real effect on you at all. If you were worried about effects, pot would be the last thing you would worry about, and alcohol, beer would be the first thing. But it's upside down.
Well,
because of a belief system.
White powder would be the first thing, and then beer. Any kind of white powder and/or pills is bad.
White powder, including sugar.
Right. Oh, no question about that. Yeah, and artificial sugar too. Like I'm sitting here with a Diet Pepsi, but who the hell am I fooling?
Right. Right.
It's bad for. I don't want to take sugar in, but I like the taste of Pepsi or this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
Two things: no one gets out alive, but no one gets out dead. Specifically from pot. There's only one person I heard rumored that died of pot, and that was Bruce Lee, because he had no body fat whatsoever. He was powder stored in fat in your system, something like that. And I think he might have died from the effects of pot. But,
maybe, but it would be you have to smoke a lot of it.
Oh yes, yes, and hey, I'm trying.
I don't know how much you have to smoke. When I was in the service, we were smoking dope like you wouldn't believe it. We had hash, opiated hash, and we had so much of it that we would brush chunks on the floor. We'd make a pipe with some tobacco, and we would brush chunks on the floor.
What branch of the service were you in?
In the Army. In the artillery.
What years were they? Were they
70 through 73?
Oh, so you there was a little tension going on still.
There was, not where I went to Germany.
Oh, okay.
I was lucky. There were 70 guys in my advanced training class for artillery surveying, which they sold to me in basic training. They wake you up at 4 a.m. one day and then shoot you full of drugs and shots for tetanus and this thing and that. Then they take you in a room and tell you that you're going to Vietnam. If you don't sign up for a job and this is your one chance to sign up, you have to take another year to do it, but you should. So I signed up for artillery surveying. There were three choices. There were a parachute packer or a chef, so-called. There's no chefs in the Army. And artillery surveying, which I thought would be the safer. Parachute packer, what they do is if you're a parachute packer, to keep you on your toes, to make you pack the chutes correctly, at the end of every week, you have to pick one of the chutes you've packed and jump with it.
Oh.
So that makes you pay attention.
That makes you a good parachute.
That really makes sure you get the fold in the right place. I'm telling you that. But I thought surveying was good. Then I realized surveyors just stand in the middle of a field where everybody else is lying on the ground, protecting themselves. You're standing up with a red and white striped pole, getting, putting in a cannon. So we did smoke a lot of dope over there in Germany. We got them in the bags, in 100-gram bags of opiated hash, and we would throw away chunks that people back in the States were holding under a glass, an overturned glass on a head of a pin to try and save the smoke. And we were just rolling in it over there. And we smoked every day, I guess, for a while, and smoked a lot. At one point, one of the guys was, unbeknownst to the other guys in the room, there were 6 of us in the room, he was getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning and going around and shotgunning all of us in our sleep. He'd turn the pipe around and blow on it, and we were waking up thinking, boy, this is the greatest hash we've ever had. We're still stoned. We've been sleeping all night. We're still we didn't know he was getting up in the morning and
he's
getting us all high.
He's making new friends for a lifetime.
He was like the greatest Mary Poppins ever.
You put him up for the rest of his life. Just to thank you.
Thanks, man. That was a great month, but I didn't die from it. I didn't even have a brush with death. I did wreck a couple of cars in Germany drinking Jack Daniels, and that almost killed me.
Really?
2 times, yeah.
They have the Autobahn, where you can go as fast as you want, really, basically, am I correct?
Yeah, as fast as your cheap car will carry you, and we had the pedal to the metal going through fog in Germany that you couldn't see anything. It was like pea soup. We were flying down the highway.
Well, it's like driving in the valley in Northern California. If you go out to the Sacramento Valley and you try to get to L.A. down 99 at night in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Wow.
One of my favorite guitar players, Michael Hedges, he died out there with a nap in the fog.
Ah, really?
Yeah, great guitar player, Michael Hedges. Great. And rolled his Volkswagen off a embankment coming back up in the Napa Valley in one of those heavy fogs. Come back up in the city. Anyway, so no, religion is, and when you talk about drugs, you are talking about religion. It is the opiate of the people. And for some people it's government, and for some people, like you're talking, it's big business. They all have their belief systems, and belief systems are bad because belief's not thinking, belief's not fact, it's not logic. And once you jump onto the belief train, you're lost to people, and you just got to hope it turns out right because nobody can talk to you, nobody can explain anything to you. You get these irrational responses to, like Obama, people just irrationally enraged, or the socialists, the Marxists, they're taking our money, you're giving money to people who don't deserve it.
Not working, and they're on the public dole and this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah,
a lot of money that's being given out, very religiously, I might add, very judiciously given out, and very nice of them to throw the few bucks they do when they're not in imperialistic wars. They're given for kids, to educate and feed kids, so that the next generation can have kids learning with a full stomach, and not repeating the sins of their parents or their breeders in some cases. And you're going to punish the kids because of the parents, and or you're going to let the parents starve to death,
right?
Because of poor decisions, or sometimes ripped off by businesses, ripped off by pension plans and what have you.
Yeah.
And the 98% of us, or whatever it is, 99%, we've been called dirt by the 1% of these grossly overpaid fucks that sit in in gray buildings in New York and don't care about the ecology. They never see the light of day. It's horrible. It's horrible, and they're the ones that are controlling things. And judges, there's a case going around Facebook today. Judge just sentences a child molester. He molested his own daughter, 3-year-old daughter, and he doesn't want to send him to jail because he's a DuPont heir. And I'm sure that has nothing whatsoever to do with it. Money has no bearing on this woman judge doing the sentence. She would not think of perhaps being set up for life or whatever, because she said, if we send this man to jail, he may not be able to handle it. Well, you know what? Jail. No one can handle jail. Jail's
nobody can. Oh, of course they can. These people think like that. Oh, come on. Certain people are sort of genetically built for jail, really. Other guys can't handle it. So, of course, you can handle it. The idea is you're not supposed to be able to... Look, she's not going to send him to jail because she likes the place she has at his pool.
Right.
She likes to visit the Lester household. Now, who knows if she really does, but that's kind of it. I'm in with these people. They're sympathetic to them. They're like me. I mean, like Congress now, it's never been so many millionaires in Congress, and of course they're millionaires. They think they sympathize with other millionaires.
Right? Who do they represent? I mean, I can't imagine a constituency full of millionaires. Oh, let's see, we got 3,000 millionaires. We'll be able to turn the corner on this election, no problem whatsoever. And who votes for these fuckers? And who keeps nominating the same ilk of people?
That's what I don't understand. This ad that people have been making fun of last week was this woman in Iowa who says, I can't forget her name. I was raised castrating hogs on an Iowa farm, which is like terribly insensitive. Well, I'm not voting for you right now because you've been raised in some terribly unempathetic way, but she uses it as a metaphor. Congress, Washington, they're all a bunch of pigs. Let's make them squeal. Let's carve them up. I know how to do it. Now, on the other hand, so you think everybody in Washington spending money, she's a Tea Party person, you think everybody's spending too much money. You got to cut back on the money. You got to cut back on the handouts and the giveaways and the grifters and the takers. Now, meanwhile, Iowa it's the second biggest state for government grants for farms, gets $28 or $25 billion a year. 80% of the people in Iowa who are farmers live off the government. Agribusiness and agricultural handouts. California gets 9%. 9% of the people take some government money. In Iowa, it's 80%. So the odds are pretty good that this woman, who thinks everybody in America is a bunch of grifters and shouldn't get anything, she's probably living off the government her whole life. The whole time she was castrating pigs up there, she was sucking off the government tit. You want to continue with the pig metaphor? She was on the Doug. Her family was probably on the government tit the whole time. But they don't. That kind of hypocrisy is beyond them. They can't see it. They don't care about it.
The bankers don't understand when they're turning common folk, working poor, quote, working poor. That expression really gets me. That's new within the last 5 years. A working poor, it's galling to have to give up time, your own time, which you can never replace, for money, which you could re-earn, right? You could inherit it, you could steal it. It's just money. But time, fuck, you only get one trip down the track. You ain't coming back, Jack. And to exchange time for money and still be poor, you work 40 hours plus, and you can't afford to raise a family. It's a crazy world.
Well, that's another one. Once again, it's a belief system. You can't tell Paul Ryan and the Tea Party people. You can't explain. You can't show them enough graphs. You can't show them enough graphs proving that when America had unions that were strong, everybody did better. They kept these CEOs in check. They made sure the money went to the people who were making the products. Enough of it, they let them live. Henry Ford knew if I pay my workers a little better, which he did, he doubled the minimum wage for his workers, if I pay them more, they'll be able to buy my car. He knows it's good for the country. If everybody in the country has money, the country does better because we can buy what everybody else makes. But when
go to the company store, basically.
If everybody got a higher minimum wage, they're all saying, well, they'll lose their jobs. And you can watch, I like watching on television, too, to see people on the news, especially the bigger, CBS, ABC, bigger media centers that are obviously in the pocket of corporations, the stories that they spin out about the minimum wage could cost you your job. The Obamacare could raise these problems, you could be paying 40% more. You might not be, and yet if you're digging around in other outlets like Mother Jones, or if you're looking in The Guardian from overseas, if you're reading overseas newspapers and analysis, or if you're reading some semi-fair-minded, New York Times, if you're listening to Krugman, if you're doing something, you know that that's not true. That we did better when we had unions. That was the big expansive time for America, the 50s and the 60s and the early 70s. And when Reagan started crushing unions, remember?
Absolutely, with the air traffic control. It was absolutely horrendous.
He was the guy who started it, crushing the unions, and he was always a jerk. The fact that he has airports named after him, and I hate it because I know what he did.
He put the American flying public at a risk that he redefined a close call by area, which to this day hurts the odds of the American public.
Yeah.
And more than that, he, as you say, busted the unions and made it okay for people to be fired for standing up for their rights.
He was a turncoat when he ran a union.
He ran
in show business. He was against his own union members when he ran a union. And then when he got to be president, he did everything. He made it okay to be racist again. He made it okay to take these. Remember him with the welfare mother with the gold-plated Cadillac and all those stories?
No, I don't.
They still think that. The Ryans of the world grew up on that drivel. But the guy was they call him the great communicator, but he communicated the wrong things, and he sold ideas I couldn't believe people accepted, like the trickle-down theory. Who would buy that? If you were a person just going and saying, hey, I'm looking to buy a shower, well, maybe you'd like our new trickler. How would you like the trickler? So, well, how's that work? Well, you turn it on, you uses a lot of water, and only a little bit of it gets through to you on your body and then shower. Really?
And you say, how do you like that? Oh, that sounds good.
Oh, the trickler, that sounds interesting. Who would buy that as a little bit's going to trickle down to you?
Yeah.
We're going to pee on a wall, and a little bit's going to get down to you in your mouth, and your thirsty little world. You'll be able to have a little bit of our pee that we're going to use. So that and people bought it, and they still worship him, and you can't talk to them. They just tell you, oh, well, you're reading the New York Times. That's not true. That's a lie. These people who are getting welfare, that's not the way this country was founded. We founded this country so that people who couldn't take care of themselves or who are in difficulty were just going to be tossed out on their own.
Well,
and they'll tell you it's a Christian country, even though the founding fathers were not all Christians or all Christians in the same way by any means. Franklin was a pantheist. There were people who were not on board with the major religions, and that's why we have a separation of church and state.
People came here to escape that kind of stuff originally.
Exactly.
That's how the country was formed. And incidentally, it was formed by pot smoking, hemp growing, slave owners. A lot of them.
Well, I know, it's a funny, it is difficult.
Well, men are created equal. They don't say anything about women. And that inequality towards women comes directly from organized religion, because it isn't just the Catholic Church where the women where nuns can't get paid what priests get paid or be priests. It's the Jewish religion where if you go into to a synagogue, the women have to sit in an Orthodox or a Reform synagogue. They have to sit, or a conservative synagogue. They have to sit separately in different seating, and it's nuts. How could a society that doesn't treat women equally, when women, by the way, are your mother,
right?
So you think, she's a woman. She's my mother. That's all right. That's the mindset.
Well, look at the Islamic countries, the Arab countries. They are going nowhere because they have taken half their population and just put it under a bushel. You can't do that.
Yeah, and
our country does better because of the contributions of women.
No question about that. And there's more peace and more love, and
no question. We've moved off of it, but we're always like that too.
I had something to say. I wish you had something to say when you come on.
We were like that. I mean, the Irish. When I went to Ireland, I was over there a couple of times. But when I went in 1990, there were still vestiges, remnants of this separation of women and men in the Irish church. By which I mean the Irish church is the bar, the pub.
Right.
And in the pub, there was a cozy, and the women had to go and drink by themselves in the cozy. They were separated out from the men in a bar. So there's a price you pay for that, obviously, and you can't have all that creative energy and intellectual energy bottled up and expect to go anywhere as an economy, really. And you can see that in countries that really treat their women who don't even recognize they're not legally even in existence.
Right.
Can't inherit property.
Right. Or worse yet, they're mutilated. Much like Jewish boys are when they're little kids. So, which I didn't understand that one when it was told that that's what happened to me. I know I didn't react to it very well at 3 days. I'm sure I didn't, or whatever it was.
Right.
But the point being, all religions have craziness, and you have to recognize that the most crazy are the ones that are the most orthodox. And in these third world countries, and you have to put Israel right there,
right?
There's an eye for an eye type thing that goes on that's spread through highly orthodox religious folks in any of these religions, who all think that there's one little piece of ground that's theirs and only theirs. That kind of thing. If you're religious, you could go, well, I'm religious, I love my brother, so why don't we share this piece of ground? And what the fuck, we lived on this desert for all these years, and there were times we got along, and who knows what we are from way back then.
No, never going to happen. Too sensible.
It's never going to happen because it's...
Neither side is willing to live that way. Neither one. So you're not going to get anywhere on that path. No one's even going to bother to go down that path. But when you talk to people about that...
It's really three sides. It's the Christians that want to be at that one spot just as much as the Jews and the Arabs.
Sure, yeah.
Muslims, excuse me.
This is where our spiritual Disneyland is here. This is where we started.
That's right.
But you get in arguments with people lately with people about the Creator, who endowed us with our inalienable rights. And there's a group of people who are very adamant about the fact that man did not give us these rights that are in our Bill of Rights. They were endowed by our Creator. They're God-given. And I say, well, okay, let's say that they are. If they are inalienable, then God must also have given us an inalienable right to those things that make those rights possible, like Obamacare.
Right.
Okay? There's no inalienable right to life without a right to health care. You can't tell people you have an inalienable right to life and go die from what you're suffering from. So it'd be like giving somebody a gun to protect themselves with no bullets. So obviously, I said, you're a right-wing conservative guy who believes in the Creator and inalienable rights, then you have to give health care, you have to give education to the kids, and you have to give some kind of sustainable food and sustenance so you can't let them die.
Food, housing, and education, and it'll be cool. Just let them have that for a couple of centuries.
Right. What's wrong with that?
War become dependent on something besides gasoline, besides oil. I mean, we got the wind out there, we got the sun, that's not going away. People get on a fucking bicycle and drive down the street. It would be really nice. You know, we don't need to be in these gas burners. And in return, the kids will be happy. Kids are happy. They're not shooting each other on street corners because they're hungry or they have to sell dope.
Right.
Legalize all dope. Make it prescription. Do that. Tax the churches.
How much money? I mean, everybody who is, I'm sure everyone who is listening to us knows that the idea that we would tax marijuana, hemp,
right,
is a win of enormous proportions for this country. How much of the budget deficit shortfall would be wiped out just by legalizing and taxing drugs?
And how many people don't even know the frickin' difference between marijuana and hemp, and they package it all together, where hemp, you could build your house out of hemp.
Yeah, you can replace, the extract is good, you can replace a lot of oil products with it.
Right? You can replace cotton, which is...
make clothes out of it. You grow it it's a weed. You grow it for nothing.
Absolutely, and it wants to grow.
It wants to grow. And if you tax it,
you can't stop it.
You make a fortune, and you stop putting people who sell it or use it in jail, and you save in your prison building. But of course,
absolutely, and you take and that's good for humanity. You take all those wonderful minds that are being wasted in prison, or they think about is going to a law library in prison to get the fuck out, which you can't blame them. But they're not contributing to society. It costs $80,000 a year to keep them there, and it's nonviolent crimes, and it's crimes against yourself. And if you prescribed all drugs, there'd be no there'd be no cartels. And if you just simply taxed all organized religion, you'd have enough money to educate.
Knock all these churches off the government. What is this? Why? What are you getting a tax break for spreading lies? You're getting a tax break for spreading a falsehood?
Well,
hey, listen, everybody. There's no Santa and there's no Jesus.
Let's assume there is a Santa and a no Jesus. Where do they come in?
Where do they come in? Why are we getting a tax break for that? So give us back that money. Give us some taxes for the drugs. You can have all the drugs you want. Let's live a logical life. That's my religion, is logic. I'd like it to add up. I can see how to do it. I know how to do it. I know how to make A plus B equals C. I know how to and you can take things apart. And I wish they would teach more logic in schools, especially grade schools and high schools, and less memorizing the capital of North Dakota. I really don't care about that. You can find it out. Right now, everybody has a little thing. Hey, what's the capital of North Dakota? Let me look it up. Boom.
You don't even have to look at it. You just have to say it into your phone. And
I don't need to spend time memorizing it. What you need to do as a kid is learn how to find the logic in a statement. Or look at something somebody says and understand that it's wrong or right and why.
And learn to communicate and socialize so that they're not sitting behind a computer 24 hours a day.
Right. These are the things that will help you get ahead. If you learn how to write, you learn how to speak. If there's anything that movie, The Wolf of Wall Street, tells you is that people who are verbal, people who are intelligent, who can make a statement, who can analyze what they want to say and say it, and who are smart and who are learned and who can speak, those people get ahead. That guy could talk people into anything because he was glib and verbal. Like a lawyer, he could have been a lawyer, he could have been a politician, he decided to talk people into buying bad stocks. But those are the things you need to know to protect yourself.
You can communicate an idea.
Yeah.
He or she can communicate an idea in a succinct manner that makes people understand. And when they come away, they can communicate that same idea to their friends, who can communicate that same idea to their friends, and pretty soon ideas spread that way. But if you get these gobbledygook politicians who are on there, and all they care about, oh my God, you couldn't have it, Jesus won one case.
Right, exactly. And protect yourself from bad ideas too.
Right.
You know? Right. How about that?
Well, here's another one that really gets me, is that we love the fetus. It's not a baby because we named it a fetus. There's two separate words for it.
Yeah.
Quite understand that. That's another thing. 73%. Change the words, change the meanings. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
So fetus is a fetus, a baby is a baby. Okay? So the baby,
you're killing a baby. No, I'm not.
No, I'm killing the fetus. And by the way, it's not killing because there's no law. It's against, you're not killing a human. Okay?
Right. But people don't get it.
We love the fetus, and that's wonderful that you love the fetus. But once the baby is born, who's going to pay the doctor bill?
Oh, yeah, listen, your sanctity of life in the womb.
Right.
In the womb, but not in the room. You know, once you come out of there.
Right.
Oh,
yeah, we're going to wipe you off, and that's what we're going to do.
Come on out, but when you come out of there, you make one wrong move, you're done.
Oh, you're done. We're going to put it on your permanent record. You know, it's going to stay with you. It's going through high school with you, and you're going to have to go downtown. Even in junior high school, they sent me to a guy named Dr. Nagelberg. Yeah. He was the principal. Imagine, and he'd have eyebrows that would flutter up and down, and he'd give you a look of, like, you're not the program. And you know what happens when you're not with the program.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Get with it.
All right, get with it, young man. Hey, Kevin, keep coming back, would you?
Happy to, man. Always fun talking to you.
All right, my man.
Always fun talking to young Ralph Tyko.
Oh, yeah, young Ralph Tyko. There's nothing older than a Ralph Tyko. Older than fucking dirt. I'm telling you.
We're still here, man.
Old, but not elderly.
We're still here. We're still on the beach. The young walrus pushes off of here.
Right. And
not leaving on my own power.
I just want to tell you, they're going to have to go through you to get to me, baby.
That's right. All right, man.
See you soon.
All right, pal. Talk to you later, Al.
Thanks a lot. All right, everybody, I'm going to end. Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to end this segment the way I end most segments. I implore Kevin and y'all out there listening here, I want you to keep your dreams wet, keep your humor dry, keep your kids off the couches of recruiting sergeants, military recruiting folks. Bad for your whole family. You make a comparison, good for your family, give them away, because you're going to the military. We went in, Kevin, you're still there, I'm glad, because when we were in the service, we didn't fight any wars. No. I don't think being in, it helped us develop socialization skills, which we could have gotten in other places. No. But I don't think being around the military mindset of no adult leadership whatsoever.
Right.
I don't think it's good for a kid to be in a very. I mean, even if the kid doesn't go to Bumfuck Egypt, wherever we're fighting a war, I don't think being in the military, marching around and everybody looking exactly the same, and them telling you when to get a haircut and take a dump, this, that, and the other thing, it's not good.
What you learn in the military is to question. If you have a brain, you learn to question authority. And what they try and teach you is to not question authority and to get with the program.
And when you're in the military, not that we have the inalienable rights that we think we have, not being in the military, but when you're in under the auspices of the military code of this, which sucks.
Code of conduct.
The code of conduct, or whatever they call it. I mean, it's different. You give up some inalienable rights. And the other thing, before we get off, is that I want to implore everybody to keep your kids away from the proverbial Father O'Brien.
Yeah.
I mean, if you need childcare, call me. I'll look it up in Yellow Pages for you. Don't take your kid to sit on a cleric's lap that's wearing a dress. A lot of times, they're cool. They're cool. Everything's fine. I'm sure a lot of them are very cool, and it doesn't apply to them. No, it doesn't, but it applies to a significant percentage of them so that one cannot trust going over there and say, hey, take care of my kid.
Right.
Frolic. So if you do all that and you keep on keeping on, we've had a great segment, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Ralph.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
See you, pal.
Yeah, we're out. Oh, boy. Comfortably zoned, Alameda, California, the 420 Studios, and not flying solo. Lucky enough to have Steve Carey Lassoff as a guest. You're in San Francisco, Steve?
No, I'm in Los Angeles, believe it or not.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you were up in San Francisco. Wow.
No,
So,
I left the Bay Area quite a while ago, right around Katrina, and have been down here ever since, living in the heart of Celebrityville and everything else.
What do you think are the biggest differences between living in San Francisco, Northern California, for those out there, and Los Angeles, Southern California?
Like the difference between a real person and a plastic model. Los Angeles is very much an industry town. It had no history really until 1930. San Francisco was the center of California and the reason it became a state. And Hollywood is, a good analogy for Los Angeles is a movie set. It's all painted and looks very fancy in the front, and you look in the back and it's held up by old wooden sticks. And that is sort of California. I mean, that is sort of Los Angeles.
Well, that sounds to me like Ronald Reagan, but what do I know? And he was held up in much the same vapid way by sticks. So do you miss San Francisco, and what do you miss most about it, and what are you glad you're out of?
I very much miss San Francisco. I miss neighborhoods. I miss sort of real people. I miss a vibrancy, a diversity, people who aren't constantly looking to get themselves made or famous or sell a project or get an audition or something like that.
And you run into that constantly, but you're in the biz, and if you're in the auto industry, for instance, your friends and acquaintances will be trying to get into the biz, living in LA.
Right.
Am I right? So,
I often look at the business and see that it's really not much different than any other business. There's very successful people, and you hit them up for perks and breaks, and if you're a plumber, you have to prove your worth and stuff like that. It's very weird because I fled Los Angeles when I was 16 and came up to San Francisco State, and what I fled was that shallowness and stuff like that. Now, when I came back after my son had graduated high school and he had grown, and I came back for family, I got a job in a 4-star hotel that caters to a lot of celebrity events. And I found myself immersed in what I had fled from before.
Gotcha.
We do like all the awards. We do the Rose, we do the Golden Globes, we do the Oscar nomination luncheon, and I'm a bartender. And I'm often a bartender like in the green room, where I'm, with exactly the people I would want to meet to make me famous, but I'm a bartender. And no one screws the help. That is kind of like the motto in this town.
Right. Let's talk about parenting. We're both blessed to have boys that are in their early 20s, and we did it. Got any philosophy that you passed on other than what we talked about, which is to encourage your child and not to trample on any dream, like a certain father that I knew that trampled on mine. I made it, you can't be a baseball announcer. You know how many people want to be an announcer for the Yankees. That's nonsense. You got to put your thoughts elsewhere, that kind of thing. And it was done lovingly because with concern, but there's got to be room for the dreamer in this world that just doesn't want to be an accountant or just doesn't want to be an insurance salesman.
And it's more than just being a dreamer. What it is that if you plant the seeds of doubt in your child early, then they will always doubt what they do. They'll always be using the parent as a measuring yardstick and feel like they failed. Whereas, even if you don't like motocross or wrestling, whatever your kid gets into, if you just show them that, this is what, it's okay. If this is what makes you feel like you, makes you whole, then I 100% support it. You may not make a living at it, but see, we were our parents were depression babies, and poverty and making a living was very important to them. It's
Absolutely.
Just as important. It's just as important today, but we don't have that burden. I was pretty lucky because I raised my son in Palo Alto and the East Bay, the ex-wife, and he immediately got into computers. He started programming when he was 8. So I started taking him to computer security shows and stuff like that when he was very young, encouraged just so he would soak up stuff. And he has gone on. He got a job 3 months out of high school, and is a chief network security engineer.
That's very, very cool.
Yeah, and it's all in encouragement because when he was a teenager, other people in the family thought he was too obsessed with computers, spending too much time at the keyboard, and were kind of worried about it. And I felt, you want to discipline him, do it in some other way instead of the place where he gets self-worth. Find other ways to discipline him. Don't mess with that. And just always felt, and really, like I say, that translates to any parent. If your kid is into something, make them feel good about being into it. And then later on, whatever they're into, they'll always feel good about being into it.
Terrific advice. And not only that, so coincides with the way you remember Diane Satin, who I partnered with from way back to have Philip. We basically raised him that way, good, bad, or indifferent. He doesn't have to like us. He loves us all the time, but we're not going to discourage him. We're going to choose our battles very carefully. And
right. I ended up one of the reasons I kind of left comedy after my divorce. One, I wasn't feeling that funny. And my ex had moved to Chicago for a short while, separating me from my son. But when she moved back, I moved within less than half a mile from her and her new husband, so we could raise our son together.
Right, I was that way in my camper van. I was always right around the block, and very similar. And it's not easy raising a child with two parents, and especially two parents who aren't all that nuts about each other, other than that they chose to mate, for Christ's sake, which made me laugh all the time on some level. But, there's not that much funny about being, those years. I didn't do comedy for a long time, and only got back into doing it through podcast radio and a few years ago. It's a tough responsibility, and it's an intense job on a daily basis, emotionally and physically. And I'm glad I did it, but the trouble is it leaves somewhat of a void after, the empty nest theory is really true. You feel empty with nothing to really dedicate yourself to for the rest of your life that you'll do with that intensity, other than, be grandma and grandpa someday, which, that has its ups and downs too. And
right, it's a sacrifice, but it's like, kids are the bottom line, so it was a sacrifice willingly done. And what's weird is once they become adults, you are kind of left, well, what do I do now?
Right. And grandparents, it's different with grandparents. I love the grandmother experience that I received, but I know they were doing it with all the pressure off. So it's almost like, a corked bat at that point. Parenting is different. Hey, you said that you tell some stories about the zoo.
Because I was hearing Randy Hauser and Fred Lazarus talk, and
I'm getting a bunch of folks back to talk on these airs to talk about their experiences. What do you remember most about? This is the Holy City Zoo. For those of you out there not familiar, in San Francisco, California. Really, San Francisco is the mecca of comedy in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And the mecca of comedy venues in San Francisco, as far as I'm concerned. Robin Williams got started here. Carey Lassoff got started here. The Holy City Zoo. So it's a great club. And what do you remember most?
It was the club. It deserves a documentary on its own because it was the playground. It was. The zoo was the place, like on a Monday and Tuesday night, you could do a set in 5 different places. You could do the zoo, the Punchline, a couple of small clubs like the Brick House and stuff like that. But at the end of the night, you always ended up back at the zoo. Because the zoo was the
hang with buddies and what have you, right?
Right, talk about stuff.
And talk about audiences and what works and what doesn't work. And
I remember there was, not many people talk about this, there was a video game in the back. I think it was a Star Wars video game that I think you got to play for free.
By the green room, right.
Right, that you got to play for free. Do you remember Jackie Diamond?
I don't.
Jackie Diamond came from the East Coast, and he was sort of like a Borscht Belt comic. Hey, folks, I'm a joke slinger. These are the jokes. What's brown and full of holes? Swish shit. Ladies and gentlemen. Well, one night, Jackie started a crap game up in the office on the balcony. You know, the office that was above the stage?
Swish shit. That's hard to say it's a punchline, but it really works.
Jackie was his own thing. Jackie was very funny. So he brought this full-on crap table, the felt, laid it out on the desk in the top room, and was playing craps with the comics, and he was losing. And the funniest thing is every time he lost, Bubs was on the side going, "Pay the line, hole! Pay the line, hole!" It was like one of those moments only at the zoo. It was such a crack up.
Right.
I was there when Michael Meehan almost broke his neck jumping from the balcony. And I think it had something a bit about the Lincoln assassination.
Okay.
Yeah,
your first time up. You remember that?
I don't remember exactly the first time. I know why. I had been performing for 2 years or 3 years with the Haight-Ashbury Repertory Theater. And we were doing sort of a comedy. We were doing like a fractured fairy tale sort of comedy where I played an old king. And I thought, well, if I go and do stand-up, it'll probably help my performance. Much to the regret of the director, because I came back. She would say, "Let's do a tableau scene here." And I'd go, "Oh, a tableau job, my favorite scene." And she'd go, "Oh, you comics." And then what I discovered is that, stand-up comedy, you perform, direct yourself, and rehearse and write all at the same time. It was so much more compacted than doing theater. So I stopped doing theater and I started doing stand-up.
And you liked it? I remember, have liked it since?
Yeah, I remember being very shaky. I remember being with Randy Hauser and going to the Alex Bennett show and sitting in worship at the feet of Stephen Pearl and Warren Thomas and like acolytes. And, they'd be talking, and then, they're talking about Archie and the Archie comics. And I kind of like it off to the side. Reggae and Veronica. And they go, "Reggae and Veronica." And then they'd riff about, Jamaican reggae and Archie comics and stuff like that. But that's what it was like. You had your You had your heroes. You were lucky if you got a little blip in there, and pretty soon, if they noticed you, you felt like you were a king.
Right. Your best moment. Best moment all the years at the zoo. And I'll ask you to talk about Cantu.
Okay. My best moment, I think, was, and Fred backed this up. He thinks it's my best moment. I was at the zoo, and I was sort of like opening. I think it was a weeknight, and acts weren't showing up. So I was on stage for like 90 minutes and had to do a lot of riffing. And reasonably pulled it off. But that was...
You could put 90 minutes together. That's kind of cool.
Well, Greg Proops always encouraged me to what he called let go of the pier. That you have to not cling on to the safety of your set. And at one point, let go and float. Whether it's talking to the people, whether it's getting the jokes for that. And as you know, like Robin Williams, it's not all made up. You have a reservoir of stuff, and you ask someone a question, and they say a keyword, and you go back to the file cabinet that's your mind, and you pull out that one reservoir. And that's what you got to do. You got to riff. You got to take a chance and improv.
And make it. It's basically planned spontaneity.
Right.
And
right.
You have to make it sound as if it is spontaneous and fresh, and
right.
At the same time be able to segue from topic to topic and not be waylaid by the audience's responses. And
right. And actually what it is it's sort of a seamless ability to go from one to another. To, talk to people, be reminded of a bit, go into a set bit, come back out, talk to people, and make it look like, you're really just flowing.
Right. Make it conversational, and in so doing, it's very difficult if your act is an act. In other words,
right.
If you're not, you know what I'm saying? If you're not the person that is up there, it must be impossible. And at the same time, it's difficult if you are the person who's you are in different, some people say, well, this kind of audience needs this kind of humor. If you're going to tell your humor, no matter where you are, you live and die with that. So it's you're a political humorist. You're a humorist with a brain. What happens when you're playing Modesto and Turlock and Schitt's Creek? How do you adjust?
As Wilder said, when you leave the 415 area, he had a 415 code act, and then a non-415 act.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that works for Wilder, certainly. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
But I think
what?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I still see comics today. I like Laurie Kilmartin. She's able to go out of her act, talk to the audience, do some improv, go back in. It's various things. I never really got off my set that much. And that's why at the time it was easy to leave, because I was at that point where I was headlining out of town and opening in the city.
Right.
And that just felt awkward. And like I said, once the divorce and the child separation took place, humor just wasn't my high point. And other screenwriting started.
Exactly how I was at Philip was 5, and when we split, I basically stopped doing comedy because things weren't funny. I mean,
right.
And they were intense, and it was. I would do it occasionally. I'd go up to Santa Rosa, play here and there, do parties and roasts and stuff like that. But it didn't get to be funny until things got cool, when the kid got to a certain age where I knew he was going to be all right.
Right. Now, I actually started getting some heat in the screenwriting field. And the best I achieved is I had something taken from me, and it got made into a very successful film. And the best I could do was pretend I was going to sue, and they threw some pennies at me, and I signed a non-disclosure clause.
Wow.
The film itself went on to win 5 Oscars. But it was a history concept, because I'm a big history guy. And it's really hard to copyright history. You can't copyright the life of Lincoln. You can't copyright things like that. So you can't take a history thing unless they use your script word for word, and that usually goes for all scripts, even if it's nonfiction. Unless they use it word for word, you don't have much of a case.
Wow. And I think listening between the lines, I'm glad you signed that non-disclosure form, because you wouldn't want anyone to know what show that was, what movie that was.
No, I wouldn't want to abrogate my non-disclosure clause. From reading it, they can do all sorts of terrible things to you. And I think you even said you can't even say certain words. It's weird because there are friends, like Randy and stuff like that, who knew what this project was. Randy's ex-father-in-law was the guy who wrote Soylent Green and Missiles of October.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I had conferred with him on this as well. And his advice was, so they ripped you off. Go out and write something else. That's great. And there's not much you can do. And you want to be a squeaky wheel, but not too much of a squeaky wheel. And I've been in other situations where I helped Roger Nygaard, who is he's the editor on Curb Your Enthusiasm, but he's also a director. And I helped him do the rewrite on a couple of films. And there was one film that he did called Suckers that's about car salesmen. And he got sued by somebody who wrote a script about car salesmen. Now, they had nothing to do with each other, and I knew Roger's script was totally original. But still, there's people out there said, hey, you wrote about a young man who's a car salesman? I wrote a script about a young man who's a car salesman. So, Hollywood is like a thieves market, and you just got to be careful and do the best you can. But the sad reality is the Writers Guild registers about 10,000 scripts a year, and they only make 300 to 350 films. Now, if you take that and realize that that's 10,000 a year, and that doesn't count the previous 5 years, at any time there's 50 to 100,000 scripts out there, and they're only going to make 300 scripts a year. So it's a big old lottery draw.
So basically, the most talented people in show business are the ones that are deciding which script is made and which script isn't made.
Well, they're not talented because usually
talented
they are
in choosing. Talented in choosing.
Well, sometimes it's in spite of themselves, because most of the choices are made.
Talent isn't the word.
Most choices are made from the producer standpoint, which is protect my money. So let's do something that's made. Let's do a TV show that's been made before. Let's do a repeat of something. Like, for example, Brad Bird of Pixar has been trying to make 1906, which is a movie about the earthquake. That was a very successful book. And from what I've heard, they've gone through 10, 15, 20 drafts. And the problem is they're trying to put a Titanic template on top of this disaster movie. There has to be a romantic story because that's what Titanic had, and it's just not working. And that's the sort of thinking that goes into choosing how projects are made. What is safe? What is going to make me money? What made money before?
What would you tell a kid out of journalism school today, or coming to high school, maybe, or coming to Hollywood, maybe not out of journalism school, maybe starting out in all of this? What would you tell someone?
I would say don't just write. If you can, make films. Start getting your directing chops as well, because that's what they look for. They look for more of an auteur than they ever did nowadays. They want somebody who can write and direct. Keep at it. There was just a guy, I forget the name of the project, but he wrote this great letter. He just sold a script for $1 million. And he wrote this letter that went out there that was, he remembers sleeping on people's couches and coming out here, and how his dreams were quashed, and he felt like giving it up several times, but he finally did it, and it's never too late. I remember meeting the screenwriter for The Great Debaters. I don't know if you remember that film. It was about African-American debaters around 1920. And that guy was 65, but he finally made it at 65 and with that film.
Wow. That gives me hope. I don't know what I'll make at age 67, but I'm making a radio show, and I get good guests, and there I go. You'll come back, I hope. Yeah,
and I will be in the Bay Area again, because it's, like I said, just from a history standpoint, all I write about is California history.
Right.
I've written a couple of articles for this California history journal called California Territorial Quarterly. I wrote about the first bomb ever dropped from an airplane happened out in where the San Mateo Shopping Center is in 1911. First time a bomb was ever dropped from an airplane. Yeah. Some ordnance guy from the Presidio, they were holding an international air show out at Tanforan because racetracks were the only place to hold air shows at that time. And he walked up to a guy and said, "Hey, I designed this bomb. Why don't we try and drop it?" And they did. And that was the first time a bomb was dropped from an airplane.
Very interesting stuff. Do you have a website that people can reach on? Please tell us what it is.
Probably my Facebook page, Stephen Carey Lassoff. I was doing a history website for a while, 100 years ago today, where every day I'd write something that happened exactly 100 years ago, but that got very time-consuming without remuneration. And as you can admit, there's a lot of stuff like podcasts, like one-man shows, like stuff that, you put your heart and soul in, but if it isn't bringing money, so after 2 years, I kind of stopped doing that. So if people want to know who I am and where I'm at, just follow my Facebook page, Stephen Carey Lassoff, and I'd be happy to take you on as a friend.
Beautiful.
Just don't be a Nigerian prince. Yeah.
You're
you got
terrific.
it, Ralph.
You'll come back, and you'll help me fight the Unholy Trinity, which I don't know if you know about it. It's big business, government, and organized religion. And
yes, I'm always against the I'm always fighting the good fight. I'm pretty much a leftist.
Right, keep doing that on my Facebook.
Yeah, I'm not an atheist though.
Well, I'm not either. I'm an Orthodox agnostic.
Yeah,
so,
I'm a Reformadox. Reformaservadox.
Well, Epis, you put it that way, which is wonderful. I had a joke in my act once. I said, if the Old Testament wasn't preposterous enough, the stories in the Old Testament, they had to write a New Testament. You don't think the Old Testament had preposterous stories? The new one? I don't know.
The Old Testament was so many different stories, and the New Testament just concentrated on one magic rabbi. So,
whatever the mythology brings to people, and the joy and the peace that they get from believing is one thing. What organized religion has done, being the go-between and making it a business and making it a tax-free business that hurts the social situation in the world. You tax the churches, synagogues, mosques, and whatever, and put them in the same category with astrologists, and let them earn their living, and you free up a bunch of money, and you could take, if you tax them, they wouldn't be able to afford the property. They'd sell it off. People would buy it, and they pay taxes on it. So that's my religion.
Yeah, religion is a personal phone call between you and God, and any man who steps in between that phone call is just wrong. So any religious leader, anybody who says, "Hey, no, this is what God means. This is what God wants you to do," that's where it goes off the tracks.
Absolutely. And the goal to recruit somebody to somebody else's religion is absolutely beyond belief. I mean, to go to Asia, for instance, and try to make Catholics out of Vietnamese to perpetuate a war, to help perpetuate the war, send missionaries to these places and make them hate us more because it's just unmitigated gall to throw that.
Well, all that exploration was an extension of the Crusades. In the Crusades, the whole thing was Christianizing everybody. So the early Spanish, the early French, they always had a religious person with them who, a big part of what they were doing was making more religious people. What's interesting is, being a California guy, the mission system was originally designed in a more socialist way in that it Christianized everybody, but in 10 years, all the land went to the Indians. And then they were good, citizens of Spain and had their own land, and it was self-sustaining. And that worked in South America and Mexico. But the Indian culture was advanced. So when the mission system came in after 10 years, these people weren't self-sustaining, so they ended up staying in much longer than they needed to be, and really just became vast slave plantations in California. So even in, like you say, Vietnam, that's just French priests coming along with the explorers when they were doing Indochina in the 19th and 18th century, and making sure, the religion went with them, because religion was a big part of that imperialism and colonization that was going on.
And I might have mentioned this on the air before, but don't think John Kennedy's hawkishness during Vietnam wasn't a payback to the Catholic Church for getting him elected.
Right, but I always thought his assassination had to do with his hesitancy to increase the war. I think he wasn't about to send troops or escalate.
You don't think he was a hawk?
That's why they offed him.
You don't think he was more of a hawk than Eisenhower on Vietnam? Because he basically inherited.
Yeah, that's just it. He inherited it, but like I say, troops didn't go in until he was dead.
That's true. That was Johnson. Someday you and I can get into who killed Kennedy. Was it Johnson and Hoover in a conspiracy, like I think? Or, and what do you think? Just out of curiosity.
I think it was a bunch of rogue elements. I think it was more right-wing, even though Johnson benefited and it was in his state and stuff like that. I think it was more sort of like out-of-the-loop elements who thought, well, if we do this, everybody will like it. And then once it happened, there was so many connecting dots that rather than, come forth and be honest to the American people, they just kind of covered it up and, again, made it a lone nut. Robert Kennedy is even more blatant, because we all saw that on TV, and here you have a guy who is faced with a gunman, and yet he's shot from behind at an upward angle. And then the very next day, the police come and they take out all the linoleum and tile and everything where there were bullet holes in the Ambassador Hotel to cover up the evidence.
Well, scary world we live in, because it's worse today than it was then in terms of surveillance.
I called the Kennedy assassination the 1963 election, and nothing's really been the same since.
Right, and the Bush election was, if you want to talk about what was fixed and fucked up, and that was the Bush election, first one, when they didn't count the votes in Florida. And, wow, I remember where I was when Kennedy was shot. I was in high school, so I have an alibi. And I do remember where I was when I found out that, the Supreme Court decided because 21 days, they couldn't take an extra 21 days to count the vote. Couldn't take an extra 21 days? Really? Scary.
Well, you know what I heard, I don't know if this is true, but a suspect story going the other way is that supposedly hackers blocked those sort of shenanigans and voter shenanigans when Obama was elected in 2008. They made sure that certain data couldn't go across state lines, and so they couldn't control vote counting, because I think, with the big corporations that control the voting machines, they send the data to like certain centers, and then they count it up and tell you what happened. And that hackers made a big effort to block any of those shenanigans, and that's one of the reasons why the Obama election was a little bit more honest.
Well, I know that the second election, too, when Carey, that was the first election. When something like that happened, Carey was going to protest it. He had 100 lawyers that were checked into Washington hotels, and within 48 hours he conceded. So I think there's a much bigger power, run by people like Bush Sr., ex-CIA people, that just come to these schmagegis on the Supreme Court, and they say, look, this is the way it's got to be. For you. You got grandkids. I think.
Yeah, some people think justice is protecting people as opposed to truth. And a lot of these people who are more powerful than us would rather cover up and lie to us because they think we're just an ignorant mob and tell us the truth. And now we got liars. liars who think we're an ignorant mob, and they're trying to manipulate everything from the energy to the health. And thank God we still have a free internet for now, so we can get some of that truth out there.
Absolutely, because if we're dependent on me paying a horrendous cost to get on or whatever to say my point of view as someone who would never have a point of view in a public, that had to go for sponsors or this, that, and the other thing, except for Coach Craig, my tennis coach and juggling coach, and he sponsors my show. But if you know what I mean, there'd be nothing. The truth would not get out there on 100 different podcasts, 1,000 different podcasts, and
right.
So it's all temporary. It's going to change. We are two folks that adopted to change along the way as we've gotten older, and that's why you make for such an interesting guest. You're a survivor. You haven't lost your passion for life, and you're dead. So I can't wait for you to come back next time. All right.
I will. Keep up the good work and the good fight.
All right. Steve Carey Lassoff, Los Angeles, California. I'm the Zigzag Man. I will end this segment. Steve, if you're still there, anybody who's not there, I will end it the way I always do. I implore people to keep their dreams wet and their humor dry. Keep their kids out of recruiting stations. Military recruiting stations are very bad. They will. Yes. I say it in a different inflection every show, but they are so bad. You will take your child. I, being a child who went to an Air Force recruiter and didn't go to Vietnam, stayed in California during the Vietnam War. I came back different or didn't go back to where I was. Good, bad, or indifferent, I changed negatively on some level from having the military experience and going to Vietnam, hanging over my head for three years and that kind of shit. So, and my friends going to Vietnam and coming back a little worse than they were. So keep your kids away from military recruiters. Keep your kids off the laps of clerics, male clerics wearing dresses. Bad for the whole family. I don't have to explain it. If you take your kid over there, don't bother suing if something bad goes on, because it was in all the papers and you should be held complicit. Your kid should grow up and sue you if you take your kid there and leave them alone, he or she, I might add, because there's abuse of women in the Catholic Church too. And I don't mean just to pick on them. No, not just to pick on them, but the overwhelming of abuse in organized religion comes from the Catholic Church. And they are all bad for you and bullshit, but especially the Catholic Church in child rearing. The rest of the stuff, your mythology, my mythology, it's the same old stuff. Yours is a little more clever than mine, a little more new age than mine is all. Not yours, but the world's. And the last thing and final thing, keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on, Steve.
Yes, sir, Ralph. You too.
All right. See you soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You are back with me, the Zigzag Man, at the 420 Studios in Alameda, California. Comfortably zoned Mondays with the Zigzag Man, Ralph Tyko, the man I love. I'm a crazy, narcissistic son of a bitch, but I do talk to some of the most interesting, most well-spoken people in history, and one of them joins me this week twice. We're going to have two separate segments with the famous Fred L.Lazarus. Freddie, what do you hear? What do you say?
Bless you. I love your introductions. I wish you would introduce me back in my days at the zoo. Nobody ever pronounced my name right, and I thank you for that.
Well, Fred is tough for a lot of people out in California.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. He mispronounced the F, and the last name's easy.
They're they start and then it gets confusing. Everybody wants to be an announcer. Everybody wants to be in radio, but few can do it. And I'm proof of that.
Yes, you are. I mean, my favorite part of the zoo was I'd be the first one up on the stage, and my introduction was simple. Have you guys found parking? Have you bought your first drink? I'd like to bring up the host, and then I'd hand the mic to the host, and I'd name the host, of course, but I do that every night.
For those of you out there that don't know of the man, the myth, and the legend, Fred, he ran for a while, managed the Holy City Zoo, which is a comedy club in San Francisco, California. This was back in the 80s when comedy was big all over, especially in San Francisco and especially at the San Francisco's Holy City Zoo. A great comedy.
Sadly, I was at the end of the zoo, near the end of the heyday of the zoo, like from 90 to 91 or right around in there. But it was still fun and a lot of dear memories. A lot of good friends and a lot of dear memories.
You're liked and remembered by folks who know that you handled the job beautifully and with dignity.
I appreciate that. I thought I just heard an old roommate laugh. I recognize laughs more than I do voices.
Right. Okay. Are we joined by Randy? No, probably not.
I thought I heard his laugh. I guess I'm hearing that.
Well, maybe he's just waiting for the proper time to make his introduction.
Yeah, the proper introduction.
Right. Randy Hauser is supposed to join us. I don't know if we missed connections on Randy, but we were going to talk a little baseball, but we got waylaid before going on the air. We were going to talk about the comics ego. I grew up at the Holy City Zoo in my early comic days in those years that we're speaking about, and I was older than the young comic starting out. I was in my very early 40s at that time. I didn't. I just came to it late. That's the only thing I can tell you. So that I was a little more mature in terms of a lot of things, and it still got to me. I mean, a performer's ego. You wouldn't think we're talking about people stealing each other's jokes,
right,
bits, premises, and stuff like that. It was so verboten, and it is such a hateful thing to do.
Oh, it is. It is. In the zoo, I don't mean to interrupt. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
No, please interrupt. I babble and go on.
Zoo, maybe the audience should be given a little bit of more history. There was never more than 10 or 15 people at the zoo at any given night. So in my mind, I let comics get away with a little bit more when it came to stealing things because maybe they were just trying something out on a small audience. Like say if it was the punchline in a packed room, the mic would have been turned off right away, or maybe they wouldn't even have done anybody else's material. But, it was a thin line to walk at the zoo for me, unbeknownst to the comics. I mean, I was under strict orders from Becky and Bob Fisher and Janice, the secretary of Bob, to not let that happen. Right. And, I became the bad guy a lot of times, and quite frankly, I have to say I enjoyed it. It was almost like good cop, bad cop, or good wrestler or bad wrestler giving a promo, I mean, it just kind of went to my head. But, I mean, I learned from the best. Becky ran that club perfect,
Yes, except for grammar.
I do have to say that.
In which case you would have ran it perfectly.
Well, not as good as Becky, but I did make my enemies, like we were talking about off air. But
she would have known that there was an adverb there somewhere,
God bless Becky.
It wasn't a strict requirement for running the zoo, but it
wasn't.
Never goes unnoticed that Comfortably Zoned Radio by the silly man with the microphone, Ralph Zig Tyko, the Zigzag Man. Hey, pardon me?
Oh, she liked you. There were a few comics she liked. You were one of them. Marty Macedo was another.
Marty introduced me to Becky. I'd been going up real late, and I love Marty. Marty was the happiest drunk I ever met.
Oh, God, I have some great Marty stories, but yes, Marty to this day is still a great guy. You know, and so is Randy Hauser. I mean, it's a shame he's not on yet. Randy was a hoot to live with, and you know, he gave me one of the best advices for my short stand-up career that I ever got from anybody. Quite frankly, Fred, you suck and quit.
Okay, well, you know.
He was right.
I call that cruel to be kind.
It was so true. You know, my shining moments came when I got my partner Scrappy and I got our act together. Then it was a little bit better. But no, Randy was a great comic and still is. I mean, he really cared about his craft and listened to other people's advice from what I saw. And, you know, would be preparing his act hours before he'd go on stage at home when we were roommates, you know. He'd go, don't bug me, I'm writing my act, you know. And he'd be in the bedroom, you know. And,
right. He was serious about it. Another fellow like that was Rick Clay. I went on the road with him.
Oh,
we did
another name from the past that I haven't heard. Please go on. Yes.
He was just very serious about his writing. I remember we were in some comedy condo somewhere, and I said, well, let's go out and smoke a J or whatever I was doing at the time, which was smoking J's, because it was a time or any time. And I don't even remember if he was into it or if it was the wrong time or whatever. Not just that, but he was disciplined, and that it takes a disciplined human being to do it. I have an acquaintance here in Alameda. His name is Kenny the Clown. I don't know if he ran for mayor and all that. Anyway, he's a clown, and he has this. But he's a bright guy too, and he's a Cal graduate, and all these things. But so he's the oxymoron of clowns. But the whole idea behind this rambling is that his expression is, it's comedy. It's a serious, funny business. He has this little slogan. I lost it in my head. But it's the serious, funniest business around, or this or that. It's a business. You got let's put it that way. And
no, I have to say, I might pronounce his name wrong, but a key ingredient to comedy is, I know you'll agree, I think it's Greg Burnett or Greg Barrett, is networking. He was the best networker I've ever seen in my life, followed closely by Michael Bossier. I mean, if you knew how to network, you would get gigs, you would get referrals, you would have people help you with jokes. I mean, networking was such a big part of comedy back then. I mean, I don't know how it is now with the new generation. But, you know, comedy had cliques back then, you know, groups, and if you weren't in the group, you weren't really paid much attention to sometimes. It was fun to watch,
and
you know.
I couldn't understand that, because sometimes the members of the clique and the group were just simply not all that funny. And they were...
You know, I love you even more, Ralph, because I wanted to say that, but I just don't want to come off as a comedy know-it-all. But since you said it first, I agree. Yes.
Right. I mean, much like my dear old self, simply not all that funny. I wasn't all that funny. It wasn't that I wasn't all that funny. It was just that I was funny in the city, but to build a name in comedy, you had to go out on the road and be funny. And when I get out on the road, I'd be talking to what I called, yam pickers, because I was...
Right. You'd be doing the death gigs, the college towns, the redneck towns, and I forgot the two bookers that were booking those gigs. I mean, I remember living with Steve, and Steve would hang up the phone. He's like, Christ, I got to do this blankety-blank tour, but it's money, you know, and I keep forgetting who the booker was. The two bookers were brothers. They're the Messiers. Yes, that's one of them. That's both of them. Then there was another one, too, and anytime you got a booking from him, it'd be in, like, some out-of-the-way place in Iowa or Idaho or Washington State or Oregon, just something you did because you were a comic, but you didn't want to do it, but it was a paid gig, you know.
And people misjudge what life on the road is. a lot of people think it's glamorous or this or that. You're a comic. You just sit around all day. Man, you're on the road in a place where you wouldn't live if rent were free.
Which, I have to take your word for it because I never went on the road, but living with Steve Lassoff or Steve Carey, who went on the road, he'd tell me the stories, and being around comics, I couldn't do it. My idea of taking comedy on the road was going to foo bars or, something like that across the Bay Bridge.
That's the road. That's a road trip. But, comics are put through a lot to have to talk to people who I didn't have an alternative act where, like a Will Durst, someone was telling me on a recent interview, he's out on the road, he has one act. He's in the city, has another act.
That's right. You cross into the 415 area code and you do your San Francisco stuff, You're so right.
Right. And I admire the fact that he was prolific and that I couldn't think in terms, back in those days, of the audience's common denominator. And Cosby does that so well. What makes everybody fuck laugh? You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. Oh, I know exactly what you're saying. Well, a big part of it is you get the local newspapers a week before if you can. And Durst would do that. Durst would get somebody to send him a newspaper or find it or talk to somebody, and he'd be so topical wherever he went, and he still is. It's not like he's dead, but Debbie will kill me for saying that. But, no, it takes a special person to be that way, and Cosby, Durst are definitely alike.
Right.
Well, Will don't wear sweaters, but anyway.
Will always reminded me of Maud Saul, who was one of my favorites when I was a kid. Do you remember Mort Saul?
Oh, my God, he's still around. He still does Mill Valley Comedy Club there every once in a while.
Yeah, Huck Flynn promised me that he'd get me with Mort Saul so I can have him on my show, and I'm looking forward to that. That'll be the highlight of that day for sure.
Oh, my God, are you friends with Mark Pitta?
Through Doug Ferrari, who I just did a show with recently. I remember Mark in the old days when I was starting.
Because Mark is pretty tight with him. I hear it, on I think it's Tuesday night
from the
Mill Valley.
Right. As a matter of fact, here's a plug for someone who's going to be on, do a segment on this very episode, and that is Doug Ferrari on the 11th, on Friday, the 11th. He'll be at the Throckmorton in Mill Valley, and that's a going club, and it has been for a long time. Mark Pitta runs it, and I don't know. He invited me, and I'm going to go there for the first time on Friday, the 11th.
You have to check it out. I've been there twice for a Durst show, but Doug Ferrari, that's a name from the past that he'd phone Steve up, and I'd answer the phone. He goes, "You're not Steve," and I would just come back at him. "Well, you're not Steve either," But Doug's a character. Doug definitely.
Doug is. That is very well put. Doug is a character from the old days. That you couldn't write fiction about Doug. You couldn't write that in fiction.
No, from what I hear, him, Bob Rubin, Doug Ferrari. The late Ronnie Hoffman, God bless him, although people won't agree with me on that one. But characters, definitely.
If God's going to bless anybody, he sure shows it, Ronnie Hoffman. And he's never wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hear it for the big GG. Oh, G-G-G.
There you go. Amen.
You say that. Amen, brother, because God's like so fucking fast asleep. I don't know. To wake God up, if no one's woken him up, him or her, in the last 100 years, just no one's going to wake him up. He can't get up. He created all this shit and just failed. He says, "You take it."
He'll outlive us all, my friend. He'll outlive us all.
You were talking
it's
about
funny with I need to throw a segue in, not to stop the God talk. But,
no, not to at all.
My eyes were really open to comics' egos. Backstage at Comedy Day once, when Monty Hoffman was trying to get into Destiny's Pants, or however that was, the feud they have, I don't know what to call it, but it was just pure hatred, but from Destiny to Monty. And here I am, a newbie into the business, business-wise, being a door person and everything, and I just couldn't believe it, It was just, Monty had a way with words that would just turn women off for the rest of their knowing him forever.
Women off to terms of knowing men. I mean, he was a lesbian maker. It isn't...
that's a great line. Yes, he was.
It isn't a bad thing. He was living in the city where that went appreciated, for crying out loud. I had a line once where men go into comedy for the drugs and the pussy, and women just the opposite. They go into comedy for the pussy and the drugs. So.
I could relate to that. I had a girlfriend leave me for another woman when I was running the zoo, as a matter of fact. I won't name names, but very few people will get that one. But, yes, it happens.
It happens. And it happens with great regularity, dear, as Archie Bunker would have said. See, what's going on with that one over there? She's growing hair where hair never grew before there. What? Where is this coming from in my head? Archie, yeah, Edith here. Well, having a radio thing there. Could you give me a beer here? That's the only thing missing in my hand.
It's just funny you should bring up Archie. I had the biggest crush as a preteen on Sally Struthers when she came down the stairs without a bra on once, and bouncing all over the place.
Yeah, those are the days when people were a little more discreet on TV. A lot of people don't know
she was also a cartoon voice. She was Pebbles in the Flintstones.
And a lot of people don't know that she ate a small city in Wisconsin.
That's right. You'd turn on late night TV and she'd be crying, "Oh, we gotta feed the kids. We gotta feed the kids."
You gotta feed the kids because you ate all the frickin' food, you biggin. Hey, that's your little girl. Your little girl's not little anymore, and I'm looking down here from heaven, and I'll tell you that, dear. Okay, I don't know where we're going, Fred, but this...
Oh, well, we were talking about clicks and egos and comedy. I mean, it was rough at first for me when Bob Fisher just said, "You have any problems, call Becky. Just make sure the club's open every night." And that's basically what Bob said to me,
Right. Well, Bob led from the top. He delegated, and he was...
I mean, the zoo was on its way down. I'm not going to take a lot of credit for keeping it open, but I will take credit to saying I tried to make it fun for the paying customers. That was my number one.
You made it good for the comics, and you were fair with the comics, and
I appreciate that. I'll tell you, there's still a couple comics out there that hate me. I mean, one I asked to be friends of mine on Facebook, and the only thing I'm going to say is she wrote back and just said, "Drop effing dead," which kind of made my day, But I mean, I keep in contact.
It's a reaction. We both are button pushers to a certain extent, and just getting the reaction out of people, whatever it is. I remember walking in my straight life. I was an insurance salesman, and once I went to a convention at the lake, and they had a meeting room right off where the machines were, and I was hot on some machine, and the vice president was standing right there welcoming everybody into the meeting room where they had to have their mandatory meetings so they could write off the convention, right?
Right.
I said I'm 23 years old, and I say to this grizzled, 50-year-old guy in a suit, a Western vice president, I said, "Hey, Sammy, baby, you start the meeting, and you have Nancy drop me a note of your speech. What was in your speech? I'm out here at the thing. I'll catch your next speech." And he goes, "The gall of the man." And I just glowed because I was a salesman. They couldn't make it without the salespeople. That they knew it.
they were leeching off of us as the workforce goes. And, but the way he said it, he turned around and walked away, and I could hear it because of the way the acoustics were in the room. He looks down at his secretary with the notepad, and he goes, "The call of the man." It was one of the highlights of my life. And that's why I'm an old man living. That's why I'm an old man living on Social Security in the back of a truck to this. I mean, because I just had to be me. And sometimes
you know what? I so relate to what you just said because I don't own a house. I don't have a family. I've been myself my whole life, and I don't think I'd have it any other way. I haven't let the man rule over me, and I've always stuck up for the underdog my whole life. I mean, you could ask me
I've
of my
always
roommate.
I've always been the underdog, so I appreciate your support.
Oh, I have. Believe me. I mean, and I ran the zoo that way, too. Like I think I said in another interview with you that if a comic would go out and put posters up or pass out flyers or go on the radio or do something for the club, I'd bend over almost backwards for them to book them and put them in a good slot or at least make sure they got on stage. But if you did nothing for the club and just showed up every night to be in your little clique, sure, I held that against you. I'm sorry, especially if you weren't funny. I mean, that's just how it was.
And we're certainly not going to mention names. We are
because not.
What we're going to do, we're going to segue. Speaking of something that isn't funny, it's dead serious, and there's baseball. Baseball back.
Oh, my God. The Giants won. Game's just over now. We just beat the Dodgers 8-4.
Right, and they had a shutout going. They had an 8-run lead there for a while, and this is just beat the Dodgers. That has sounded good to me since they were the New York Giants and the Brooklyn Dodgers, and I hated the Dodgers in those days. And those days, those Dodger teams, I love them now. I love their memory. Talking about the Giants wouldn't be the same if there weren't the Dodgers, because that's
where the term bums came from.
Right, and that rivalry, that's why they both moved out together, and O'Malley was such a genius on some respects to get Stoneham to move with him. And for those of you out there that care about baseball, as do I'll tell you a little story about when the Giants were set to move, the New York Giants were set to move to Minneapolis. O'Malley blocked it. And how was he able to block it? He had territorial rights because the Dodgers owned a farm team in St. Paul, which was right next door. It was a AAA team, and he blocked it and forced Stoneham to move to San Francisco. And showed him that it would be great for both franchises.
Yes,
it wasn't as great. They talked him into it, in essence forced him, because he couldn't move out if teams couldn't go that far west and only make one stop. It wouldn't be profitable.
There was no money in it. Yeah.
There was no money in it.
And they had the built-in rivalry, and San Francisco promised a frontline stadium with heat.
Right, with heat. The seats, the only thing, the first day, the heat on those seats never frickin' worked, and they never worked for the time that the candlestick, as we used to call it, was in existence. They simply never turned on. And another thing, when they surveyed the area for wind before building Candlestick Park, they surveyed it before they tore down a mountain, in essence, that was preventing the wind, so they could build the frickin' park. And after that, the wind would come in. If you were ever unfortunate enough to think that it would be warm this evening, because it's 85 this afternoon, in San Francisco, which it wasn't very often anyway. And especially when I first got out here, I went to a night game at the Stick, dressed for California, and
you must
I was never colder. Yeah, I was frozen. But what memories of Candlestick and Willie and all that. It was
You know,
it was
you're
pretty
so
cool.
right. When I was a kid, I used to like the Montreal Expos uniforms. They were different, and it was a Canadian team, and they sang the Canadian national anthem and the American national anthem, of course. So I'd go to a lot of Expo games on the weekends. And anyway, we're sitting in the front row, my father and I, and the Expos, this is like during batting practice, and I'm asking for a ball. The guy gives me a ball, and we talked for a minute. I forgot his name. Anyway, but he was all bundled up, you know, and he started complaining about the cold, you know. He goes, it's like I'm back in effing Canada, you know, and he said the F word in front of me as a kid, right? And he felt so bad he turned around and took his cap off and gave it to me, you know. But they hated Candlestick so much, you know, the opposing players, you know. It was not like a field.
Yeah. Now, Montreal, I might add, I had an affinity for that city because they were the team that Jackie Robinson broke in with, and they were the one city in the minor leagues that was racially tolerant.
Mm-hmm. You get it out of the park again. You're right. Yes, it was. Yes, they were.
Right. And he was able to break into professional ball and not be booed like if they put him in the South where they would barnstorm, crazy racist stuff. They were a racially tolerant city, and I never met anybody, first from Canada, who I didn't like. They're very, very good, mellow folks in Canada. And Montreal is no exception. It's very cool. I can't think of his name. I'll tell you a story about a guy who got called up to the majors the same time Gene Mark did, and for another time Gene Mark managed Montreal. And
he managed Montreal.
They had Warren Cromartie and
Cromartie had an arm. That guy had a cannon.
Yes,
I remember hit good, hit for power, but had a cannon.
Yep. He played for the Mets briefly later on in his career as well. He was one of my favorites. Of course, the kid Carter was later a Met, not one of my favorites.
Right.
I think he was.
Didn't they have the human rain delay on their team too? Ron Fairley. I think not Ron Fairley. He wasn't known as, but Ron Fairley was on the Expos. But who was the player that was the human rain delay?
I remember the expression, the human rain delay, but I just had a computer meltdown.
Don't worry about it. So have I.
Generally, that would have the human rain.
Might have been
his
wrong.
name was was it Hebner?
Well, Hebner was on the Pirates.
Right. I don't know if he played with Montreal later, but Richie Hebner would go through a whole bunch of stuff.
They had
I
Al
know
Oliver.
Who you're talking about. Al Oliver. They had Le Grand Orange, Rusty Staub.
Oh, Rusty Staub.
Yeah, that was a hitting fool.
Oh my God, he was very underrated. You know,
yes,
very almost as underrated as Ken Singleton, but that's another story for another time.
Yes.
Kenny never got recognized.
Yeah.
Great hitter.
And Fairley did play up there, as a matter of fact. If I'm not mistaken.
That's why I mentioned it. Probably. And Warren,
but I don't think he was the human rain delay.
I'm thinking Minnesota, maybe. Maybe the guy was on Minnesota that I'm thinking of. It's too bad Randy didn't call in. Randy would know.
Yeah, well...
What happened to Randy? Doggone it, didn't pay his bill or something?
I don't know. Well, maybe it's 4:20, and sometimes that's an advantage to call in at 4:20, and a reminder at the same time.
Yeah.
Sometimes the next day
had a lot of good players, though. You know, Steve Rogers, Gary Carter, like you said, Warren Cromartie. And then there was the other one guy we're not thinking of, the Hall of Fame. I think he made the Hall of Fame. Oh, he's probably their best player, and I can't remember him. God darn it, wasn't Warren.
All right, but let me tell you something. Charlie
Andre
Fox. Yes, Andre Dawson, you mean? Andre
Dawson. Yeah, God, could that guy
hit?
He was like the National League version of Jim Rice almost. You know?
Right. Well, he had a bad knee. If he didn't have a bad knee, it wouldn't have taken him 15 years to get into the Hall of Fame.
Or
whatever it took.
Yes, he had the bad knee.
He was the Hawk. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
oh my God. Yeah. When he was healthy, there was no stopping him.
Do you remember the year of the Fox in 1971? Charlie Fox.
Oh, of course.
Well, Charlie Fox went on after he got fired as the manager of the Giants. And all managers are made to be fired, or hired to be fired. That's just the way of things. He went on to be the general manager for a short period of time of the Montreal Expos, and he did make some. Yeah, and he made some very key decisions. Some around Rogers, I think there was
Steve Rogers.
I can't remember.
The only no-hitter.
I did a sports talk show on television, on cable television, Sports from the Top of the Hill, for at that time Cal State Hayward, and Charlie Fox was one of those that did interviews with me on the golden age of baseball. People like
you lucky man, you. That must have been so cool.
It was unbelievably cool. Leonard Coppin, Charlie Fox.
Did he sign Tim Raines? Was he the brains behind signing Tim Raines out of prison? No, not Tim Raines out of prison.
Tim Raines wasn't. It was Ron LaFleur, and the brains behind that was Billy Martin.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's kind of a long time ago, but Tim Raines did come up with the Expos.
Yes, Tim Raines is not to be confused with Ron LaFleur.
Yeah, that was my faux pas. Yeah, my faux pas. But Tim Raines was good when he came up. And But did Charlie Fox sign him? I sort of remember. Oh, well, maybe.
He might have. He might have signed Tim Raines, but not Ron LaFleur.
Right.
But there was something going on that some very important bit of Expo history that he was in on. And Charlie Fox was a tremendous interview. I had Hank Sauer come in. I had Joe DeMaestri come in. I had, again, Fox. I had Charlie Silvera, the old backup catcher.
Those are some real baseball and announcer names. Jesus.
Right, and we did on the air stuff, and I backed it up with some black and white footage of old footage of that time, and it was just a kick in the ass. Like most of my life has been. I'm like Walter Mitty. I get to do stuff. I don't think I've even announced this on this show. I just picked up a summer gig being the statsman, part-time announcer for an Alameda-based team called the Neptune Beach Pearl. It's a summer wooden bat college team and they play all up and down Northern California. And I'll be traveling with them and hanging with them and doing podcasts. And these are all guys going to college.
That sounds so good.
Right. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm talking to interesting people about interesting stuff. And you're one of them, Freddie. So on this particular episode, this is Monday with the Zigzag Man 2. Coming up, it'll be posted very, very late Sunday night. You will be on this segment, and you will be on one with Lance Solo, and you guys just rocked. It was really cool.
Talking with Lance, I mean, like you said, 45 minutes after the show ended, we're still talking to each other, and Lance is a survivor.
And
I mean, Lance.
How did you end it? I haven't even played the end of it. You
Oh,
just
well,
said,
we
well,
were just
that's
talking
it.
about what he's doing. I mean, he was doing work in Spain. He was
Right. Very interesting stuff. Yes.
Yes, that's what we were talking about, and a lot about the old days. You know, we rehashed a lot of things that happened, good stuff, and a lot of it was talking about our old softball games.
Did you know you were still on the air towards the end? I never did. No.
Oh, you never showed up at Julius Kahn. Well, that's what the majority of the end of the conversation was. Because that's where we had our most fun. Because, you know, everybody, until Tom Sawyer showed up, everybody was equal at those games. And the transformation of all the comics kissing Tom's butt during those games was so funny to watch. And Lance and I were like, well, we're not kissing his ass, you know. But that's another story for another time. And Tom's a good guy, I hear now. So no offense, Mr. Sawyer, if you're hearing it.
None whatsoever. He's a good Facebook friend. He broadcasts from a station called FCC Free Radio. He does a podcast, and they are, notwithstanding their owner, general manager, a super, super place to be.
Oh, that's great. And I mean, no malice.
Notwithstanding that, Mrs. Lincoln, how is to play? Yes. I was going to say, notwithstanding that, Mrs. Lincoln, how is to play? So,
well, I'm going to let you sign off. I don't want to take you past your allotted time.
Well, my allotted time comes from heaven. And, please don't say God bless you at the end when we sign off. All right. Only because
God bless you, Ralph. Like Lance said to everybody, God bless you, my friend.
God bless you, too, because I know how well that works. And I know how, I think although a blessing can be described in many, many different ways, you're a blessing on this show. You're easy to talk to, you understand stuff, and you just got a great spirit. So if I were going to be praying, and I think it would be a sign of disrespect to pray, but were I a prayer, and I am to everybody out there, please pray for what Fred is going through.
Oh, yes, I need the prayers. So far, they've been working. So far, the big cancer is in the background and in remission. And I guess it was a TKO for me against it this time, which is great. But, you know, it always comes back, and I could use all the prayers I can. But I'll be fighting, like my hero, Roddy Piper says, I'll be a smoking and a poking. So I don't know if you ever heard of old Roddy, but he's my hero.
No, all right. Smoking and a poking. That I can... I can appreciate it. Could there be a worse way to spend your life? I think so.
You got the joke that was in there, my friend. That's one of the reasons why they called him Hot Rod, but that's for an inside joke.
As it were.
I'm sorry, Randy didn't make it.
Which is another inside joke. But we could play word games all day, and it seems to a lot of people like we already have. But
you take care, Ralph, and I'd love to be on the show anytime you need me. Just give me a Facebook message. I'll pop up, and I'm really sorry Randy didn't show up. You know, and
I know.
Call in.
We'll have to reschedule with Randy, and but he's been on before, and the reason I thought of you for the second segment, we recorded the first one last week, is that he did mention that you were a former roommate of his back in the zoo days. So,
oh, my God, yes, he was. We were both addicted to this video baseball game, Baseball All-Stars. And he commandeered it from me. He pirated it from me. I'd come home, want to play the game. Hey, Randy, where's the game? Oh, no, I'm in the sixth inning. I'm playing the World Series, you know. And there went the game. It became his. And I'd like to think it started him on his video career because he worked for various video gaming corporations. And
really?
Yes, he did, and I get that for that. It was
that
of
a
me.
Genesis game? My first game.
No, this was. Oh my God! It was GameCo or something like that, and it was for the first Nintendo. And you started off with 9 players with no power. And you had to play the computer game, which they were all Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Ty Cobb types. Well, if you played long enough, you'd learn the secrets of how to pitch to each one, and it'd give you so much power to put into each individual player that you had. So it took you about 2-3 weeks, and you had an all-star team. Then it would be fun, you know. And I took that game to the Holy City Zoo. If you remember that huge TV they had. I kicked everybody out of the club, and I think one time Randy might have, maybe not, but a couple other comics played that game with me, and it was a great game.
Let me ask you this. Do you play baseball computer simulation games to this day?
No, not anymore. I'd rather play in person. I'd rather go and play it myself. I haven't got into that genre since then. Just haven't.
Well, okay. Well, I was just wondering because
I couldn't help you with that.
For baseball fans out there, I play something called Dynasty Mogul or Baseball Mogul, and it recreates seasons. You pick your own seasons, teams you want to play. You can put different teams together to play in different leagues, and they recreate because baseball is so easy to recreate statistically.
Yes, that's why
someone's ability. It makes for interesting. It's very playable, and it keeps records for you. You don't have to write things down.
Great. It keeps the stats and everything. Wow.
It keeps stats.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. We got all day.
Oh, I wanted to bring up one player I forgot last time we talked. I wanted to ask your opinion of the only modern-day pitcher to win 20 games and lose 20 games, Wilbur Wood. I used to love getting the newspaper. He'd always, back then, the team's best pitcher would always face the other team's best pitcher. So on Saturday or Sunday, there'd always be a duel of aces. And I used to love reading the stats, the box scores, and seeing what Wilbur Wood did. And I remember I was so excited the year. I kept telling my friends, he's 15 and 19. He's going to win 20 and lose 20. We'll never see that again. And sure enough, as a teenager, I predicted it right. I don't think we'll ever see that again. Because, first of all, the manager won't leave you in long enough to lose 20. And it just won't happen. I think that's one record in baseball that Wilbur Wood could grab onto and never let go. And I'm sure there are others before him that did that. But in modern day, I don't think there was anybody who's done that before or since. So yeah, you could relate to that. That was quite an accomplishment. Well, absolutely. And one of the things that made that possible, he was a knuckleball pitcher. He'd oftentimes pitch both games of a doubleheader. The White Sox were feeble back then, just horrible, Yes. Billy Melton. 20 on that team, and that could be a whole other discussion for another show that we do. But pitchers that pitch for a bad team, you have to think of Steve Carlton. 27 wins on one half of his team's games, and I always thought he would have won 36, 37 games if he pitched for the Yankees or just some other team, Right. Absolutely. You could make that case, but you could also make the case that that some of the pitchers that do pitch for the Yankees, were they pitching for other teams, they wouldn't be that great. Or of course, yes, that goes right with that territory. Oh, for sure. Right. So there are no statistics. Go ahead. Oh no, go ahead. I was just saying statistics can lie in a lot of ways as well, and there are a lot of things that go into making up a team. I'll tell you the one number thing. You got to be somewhat lucky and remain healthy. I'm looking at the A's lost 2 of their starting pitchers coming into the season. Parker is out for the year. Griffith, I think it's Griffith, probably gone for more than the at least 4 weeks he'll be gone for. And they're already struck. Their bullpen is already being strained. And they could have signed Hudson, which would have been a logical signing. They could have kept Cologne.
I think that
I don't have any idea why they didn't sign him. Now, where is Cologne pitching? Is he still playing?
Cologne is a Met. Cologne is a New York Met.
Oh, that's right.
So,
I haven't paid any attention since the signing. That's right. Well, Bean will do something. I mean, he'll do something. But
yes,
I mean, look what Billy Martin did to the pitching staff by over-pitching them. Langford and I forgot.
Keogh, Langford, Norris.
Yeah, Norris, Mike Norris. I used to love him, Mike Norris.
Right. He was somewhat of a dipper, as they say.
Yes, he was. But, my favorite pitcher, maybe I'll sign off after this and let you sign the segment off. One of my favorite pitchers, actually an easy trivia question, who was the only pitcher to pitch a no-hitter on acid? He was one of my favorites. Yeah. Wherever he went, he was a character.
He wrote and he just passed away, did Doc Ellis.
Yes, he did. That's another reason I brought that up. Rest in peace, man. He was one of baseball's characters,
He was, and the bird Fidrich just passed away.
Oh, well, didn't he get killed by an accident by getting his shirt caught in the bottom of a shredder or something?
Something like that, yeah.
He died a horrible death, but I remember he on the Tigers. He came to town. It was a sellout. He talked to the ball, and I mean, he did it before Al Hrabowski did it. Psyched himself up, and Hrabowski stole a lot from him, and was not a mediocre reliever, but a flamethrower. But when the Superstation came on here on the West Coast, and everybody, the Braves were on all the time. They televised all the games, and he was fun to watch, Hrabowski. I have to give him.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks, man.
Alrighty,
I'm going to sign off. I'm going to implore people to, and you, of course, keep your humor dry, keep your dreams wet, keep your kids out of recruiting stations, and I'll keep it nice and simple this time. Keep your kids out of daycare run by the proverbial Father O'Brien or anybody, any male cleric in a dress. Keep their kid off their laps. They'll sue you. The kid will grow up for bringing you there. That's what it'll come to, because it's in all the papers. Everybody knows about it. No unsupervised time with your kid, for your kid, with these people. They're not well-meaning. It's bad. They need to be taxed, as do all organized religions need to be taxed, and we need to start benefiting our cities. We need to stop war. We need to do all those things. So, darlings, keep on keeping on. Over and out. Thank you, Fred. See you soon, man.
My brother. You take care of yourself, and God bless you, and keep the show going. I want to be on again. Don't quit it.
I won't. Thanks,
all right,
man.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya, buddy.
We are comfortably zoned once again with the Zigzag Man, Alameda, California, the 420 Mobile Studios. And, we're in 3 cities today because I've got 2 guests from the old days at the Holy City Zoo, Lance Solo and Fred L.Lazarus. Both kept those doors going at the zoo, and it is my pleasure to have you guys on. How you doing, Lance? How you doing?
Good to be here, Ralph. Good to be here. Good to be here with Freddie.
With Freddie, I know you guys were old buds, and I thought this would be a tremendous segment. For those of you out there in Radio Land, the Holy City Zoo was in the 70s, 80s, early 90s, the mecca of comedy clubs in San Francisco, which is the mecca of where comedy was really big influence in the 70s. People came out of that club, Robin Williams, whole bunch of people. The Holy City Zoo was the place to be in the comedy world in the 70s, and my guests were intrinsic parts of it. You both have stories to tell. I'd like to talk. Pardon me?
Oh, I'm saying that's great. That's a great introduction. Almost as good as your last one last week or 2 weeks ago.
I'm a babbling fool, is what you're saying. I think I read between the lines. Lance, what he's saying is the host is a babbling fool.
No, I thought it was wonderful too, especially since we were kind of Mecca before Mecca was cool.
Oh, that Lance hit it right out of the park like he usually does. I mean, Lance was there during the time when it was really hopping. I was in at the tailor end and kept it from sinking like a Polish sub with screen doors. I mean, Lance had it made because it was really happening. There were real comics there. They cared about the club. I got it when nobody really cared that much about it, when Becky was gone. But I'm not complaining. It was a great time in my life. And Lance is a legend. I mean, just an effing legend, you know. I mean, I had people come up and say, "You're 3 times less than man Lance is," you know, and I didn't really have an answer to that. I really didn't.
You know, Freddie, a lot I was hoping maybe today we could talk softball, because that, my friend, that was some of the best times that I ever had, was playing softball out in the park, hitting a long fly ball and watching the idiot from the Cubs run and run and run.
Oh, you mean Mr. Tom Sawyer.
Sawyer, yes. Run.
Now, before I go into my rant about Mr. Sawyer, I have to say he's changed. He's now a mellow guy. But back then, it was like, back then it was his park, his air, his sky, his ball, his dirt, his bat, and his base. Yeah. I mean, it was so funny for me because I was not a comic. I didn't give a good goddamn about him. And all these comics were kissing his ass, Lance, you know? And it's like, I was like, I'm not a comic. Fuck you, Tom Sawyer. And I said that to his face one time. You know,
Tom Sawyer was the producer of Cobb's Comedy Club in San Francisco, and he is now a fellow podcaster of mine. He's on in San Francisco, and he's a pretty good guy. But my favorite
I'm glad to hear that. You know, everybody has some good in them, and I'm glad now that it's coming out of Tom, because for a while, you know, and I'm not afraid to say it, not too many people liked him back then. You know.
Hey,
bookers.
Well, you know, that's how it goes, but he's transformed miraculously. You know, let me review with Lance some of my I was an open micer, and times that I spent with Lance and Stu.
Oh, God
times.
Bless Stu. I got to interrupt and just say God bless Benjamin Stewart.
The memory thereof. You got a story or two to tell me about Stu, Lance?
Stop what you're doing. Stu's here. No, Stu,
stop what you're doing. Stu is here.
Stop what you're doing. I haven't done a Benjamin Stewart impersonation in a long time. No, Benny and I used to do the road together because I could pick him up. I could pick him up out of his chair and put him in my car, and then I could pick up his big electric wheelchair, and I had a big black Mercury Monterey at the time, and I could put that in the trunk, so we would go out and do the road. And I think one of my favorite moments was we were coming back from a gig in Marin. We both kind of look a little bit alike, except being on the complete opposite end of the evolutionary scale. And
your hair was long. Your hair was long. You had a beard.
You know, we're kind of homely and scary. And we came rolling in. We had black on. We both had our black leather coats on, and I had this big black Mercury Monterey. And those are not women screaming. Those are peacocks, by the way. And we came pulling into the toll plaza on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge and stopped, and I rolled the window down. And I remember the toll taker looking in the window, looking at me, looking at Stu, and then just saying, "Are you guys for real? Just get out of here." And she didn't even charge the toll. She just rolled on through. It was pretty funny.
Oh, that's
he was a good man. He was a good man.
That is I've never heard that story, you know. Now that Lance is on, I'd like to ask his version of my first time with Benjamin at the zoo, the night that he was riding on that car that was parked in the handicap zone. I mean, I don't know. I sort of remember Lance being there and walking up to the guy as Benjamin's riding on the side of the car, you know, because he was parked with no handicap placard or handicap license plate in the handicap zone. And,
right.
Do you remember that night, Lance? Do you remember?
Just vaguely, but I think the expression "this is not kept ringing through the Clement Street air as Benny was screaming, "This is not accessible!" And we were just kind of standing around as the guy was looking at everybody saying, "Well, I think I'm going to get the hell out of here." Yeah, he was. He was a firecracker. He was a firecracker.
That kind of confirms my story. Is when you walked up to the car where the guy was almost like yelling at Ben. He saw you and just took off.
Yeah,
and you didn't even have to say anything.
We just kind of
Lance, you go about what? Lance goes about 6'7" and 240, 280, something like that.
Ralph, 6'9", 250. Come
there
on.
You go. There you go. Nothing but muscle and bulging muscles on top of it.
I got a few bulging muscles, but
could
you
not
gotta
ask
tell the
for
audience
sweeter.
What size Ben was, though. I mean, Ben was what, 2'9",
probably
35 pounds.
Yes. Ben sat in a chair. He was a dwarf, and he and Lance both were so sweet. I mean, you're big and tough on the outside. You were so supportive to the comics starting out. You always had a nice word, and it was those were nice days.
Oh my God! Fantastic days. When I saw Lance, I took Lance's place at the door, and I forgot why Lance left. And Becky hired me from playing softball, like I told in the last show. And when Lance showed up, I just loved it. He was so sweet to me, so nice. This is what you do. This is how you do it. Put the money in this pocket, not that pocket, because it might fall out, and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
He was great.
I left then for my first stint in the French Foreign Legion. I was over in Tunisia for some time. It was a very odd time. Myself and Larry Brown were over there for quite a while. It's a
Larry Brown.
Larry got left
Never mind.
in Jakarta. I'm not saying you might have to do with our current administration.
Something else I wanted to ask Lance about that period. I used to have a picture of it was Halloween night at the zoo, and you guys, when you lived with Marty and Ray James, you guys converted Ben's wheelchair into a wagon, a covered wagon. Now, if I remember right, was it you guys in diapers? And you were one of the horses with Ben whipping the horse in front of him. That was you on stage. Or do you remember that?
Gosh, I don't. I remember the wagon because we made the wagon for a show that we did at the Belrose Theater. A little plug for the Belrose up in Marin. And
gotcha.
It was with Jack Rikus and myself and Meehan. And Benny, and it was for this like sketch where we were around a campfire, and he was Cookie. He was Cookie. But I think he just hung on to that. He hung on to that thing, and I think he actually rode that in the Gay Freedom Day parade one year. Very spectacular.
Oh, God bless him.
I think Monty
God
was
bless
on
him.
as some kind of a
I never knew that.
Yeah. Crazy times. There's a lot of secrets about that place that nobody really knows. And if you ask Lincoln Earl how many bodies are buried under the place, well, geez, that's
Lincoln Earl.
Yeah, that little closet in the back where the beer was, that was their little...
That was the green room. That was the green room.
The green room. One of the great decisions of the last management, I'm not going to name names, was to have, I think it was Dan Wedeking, replace the green paint with cartoons.
Yes.
One of their great brainstorms. And I was like, how can you just, how can you cover history? Those walls were Robin doing coke on the floor, and there was a black and white little TV. I don't know if you remember it, Lance. It was in the back room of the zoo forever and ever.
Well, I remember it.
I got it
nice.
Because I when I quit, it was right before the sale went through to the Durst and the Foresters, and I have known Will and Debbie Wright, I think, about 2 weeks after they met here in the city. That's how long I've known them.
Oh, really?
And anyway, I didn't want to work for them. You know, Lance,
Yeah.
and Ralph, I just didn't want to work for him,
Good.
so I gave my resignation to Fisher. And
Good.
I don't have any beef or anything with Tracy, but I really didn't agree with her comic philosophy at the time either. You know, because she was the one that fired Carlos Alazraqui, and 2 months later he won the comedy competition. Real good brainstorm on her part. But make a long story short, the zoo didn't pay me. Well, there was no money. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, we're not going to pay you. There just wasn't any, you know.
Yeah.
And instead of taking my measly, God, Lance and Ralph, I think Bob would pay me $30 a night, you know. And I just said, keep it for the liquor. But when I quit, Janice, the secretary, you know, wanted to write me a check for something, and I said, no. And she says, well, you're not going to sue us or anything, are you? And I go, no, I just want a couple keepsakes. I want the black and white TV in the back, and there's a little statue of Robin that used to sit on top of the register. Those are the two things I got, and I still have them to this day. But the reason why I'm bringing up the TV is because supposedly, rumor has it, when there was nothing else to cut the coke on, they turned the TV upside down and cut it on the screen.
Nice. Nice.
That's a nice
regret at the zoo was that I got rid of the horrible smell of vomit that everyone used to comment upon. They would walk into the zoo, and everyone would always say, wow, it smells like puke. And I figured out that it was the tap drains, the drains that went into the drain, and I cleaned it all and washed it all out, and it didn't smell like puke anymore. And I really kind of regret that.
And you know what? John Bauman called it the Lance effect, or had a joke about it. You know,
yes, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. John Bauman's a great guy.
Now guess who smells like puke? Me, constantly. It's horrible. Stop.
Oh, man, playing softball with you, Lance, it was so fun.
The ghost of Monty.
Those softball games were great. I mean, we had a who's who of comedy. I mean, Greg Proops, Rob Schneider. One time Robin showed up. First, you, Lank and Earl. I mean, it was the thing to do and the place to be every Monday. You know, noon, Monday at noon.
One of my favorite things. And Dave, I'm up in Santa Rosa a couple of years ago, and I stumbled across the freaking Last Day Saloon in Santa Rosa. I about fainted. Walked in there. Where's Dave? Is Dave around?
Yeah.
And Dave's up there, and I think what's his name? The bouncer, Tim, was up there.
Oh my God! Well, I got a great Dave story. My the night I became the door, well, I started hanging out at the zoo before because Becky said, you know, come on over to the zoo. I want you to check everything out. But, you know, make a long story short, Dave's sitting out on the bench there. Remember, Lance, how he'd come out and have a smoke? Hey, how you guys doing? You know?
Hey.
Yeah. Is our microphone turned up too loud or whatever? He'd always tease us because his club would drown out our club, the sound.
Oh, gosh,
you know, it's just a wall between his stage and our stage.
But
anyway,
your
he goes
in between the guitar riffs.
Yes, you know. And it's funny, and he goes, Freddie, you know, your mom and I had a quick affair. And I go, what? And it turned out that my mom and Dave had to-do for like a week, you know.
Really? You
a little bit. God bless my mom.
Whoa.
She's passed, but
really?
every time I hear Dave's name, it brings a smile to my face, you know.
Good for Dave, you know.
I'm sure your mom, every time she thought of Dave, she had a smile on her face. So,
well, you know, this segues into another story because, you know, once I started managing the club, I go, hey, Mom, come on over to the club. You know, I'm managing it now. I never wanted her there when I was a doorman, you know. So she came, and one time Dave was out in front, right? And her new husband, second husband, they were both walking up the street, and Dave stopped and introduced himself, and my mom's, like, waving at me to just not say anything, you know, keep your mouth shut. Never forget that. But, damn, Dave was a good guy.
It was good times on Clement, and we had the crazy circus around the corner with Ray and Marty Maceda, and I can't. I know we the other guy,
the motorcycle guy. I think it was Mike or Mark.
Mark, and then I would come in and out of there, and the crazy Chinese woman who's downstairs running running the haircutting place, and it was good times. Going to the 440, we go to the 440. We invented a drink over there. It was basically a red beer with a little bit of vodka and a Slim Jim, and we called it a Beefy Mary. We used to drink those things. It was. I love Clement Street, man. Those were good times over there.
You know, Lance. They sure were. After you moved out of your place, Marty was still there, and Ray was still there, and Mark was still there. And Marty one night broke up with Jovanka Steele. And I broke up with my girlfriend, Rachel, who, anyway. So the two of us were like commiserating with each other. We got a bottle of vodka after the zoo, of course, and went to his house, you know, your old place. And we're sitting there doing shots, listening to Hank Williams Sr. songs. And this is when Ray and Bridget Swartz were going together. And you know, Marty and I are there in his bedroom there with the door open just saying, fuck all women. Women suck. Women are horrible. Bridget comes out of the room. She must have been getting it on with Ray. Is naked underneath a towel and flashes us and says, not all women suck, you know. And Marty and I just, our eyes just popped, you know. And he kept walking to the bathroom. And Marty and I just, time for another shot. I'll drink to those, you know. And
there you go.
That was a great night. I don't know if Bridget wants me saying that on the air, but it happened tonight.
She'd love to hear, as a grown woman, she'd love to hear about it. Of course. Who wouldn't love to hear about some drunken night with a bunch of comics coming out and flashing them?
Well, I wasn't really a comic, guys. I got it, you know, I just, you know.
Oh, well, in that case.
You know, maybe I was a part-time comic, but still, yeah, that was a night. I mean, we both hated women until Bridget flashed us. And then it was like, life's not that bad.
We'll start over.
Yeah, exactly, Ralph. And that house was a legend, you know. I mean, I remember I ran into Lance one day, and Lance was all upset, and not tears or crying, but he was all upset. And I go, Lance, what's wrong? And he goes, Andre the Giant died today. And I was like, oh, my God, where did you hear that? And it was on the radio, and I'm a big wrestling fan from way back when, and that really hurt me because I always loved watching him and going to the Cow Palace. And I mean, it was one of the few men on earth that
and you can relate to the big guys, can't you, big guys?
All the giants, we all know each other. You know, we just do. And I do. I'm still hacking away. I'm still fighting with show business. Somebody asked me that.
Fighting? You're an actor. You're in Los Angeles. Tell us about what you're doing now.
I'm fighting the fight. I get out. I was a recurring character on Lopez, his late night show. I was Bogart the Blacksmith, sang dirty songs about Fergie. It's on my website, www.lancesolo.com. And I'm hacking around, and I also got sucked into the medieval world. I was building buildings for the Renaissance Fair. Then I started working at the Renaissance Fair. Then one of the guys said, hey, you want to come over and build a building and be the king in Spain? So I went to Spain, Mallorca, Spain in
oh, my God.
Wow.
And I was the king of a jousting show over there, and I've been jousting ever since. And that changed my life because, of course, the whole island is surrounded by beaches, and, of course, all the beaches are topless. So it's...
I'm not saying anything because I don't want to blow your taglines on the story. How true. My God, you are one lucky man.
Yeah, it was fun. As they say, it's good to be king. So
it's good to be king.
No, you guys are both wrong. You're both wrong. It's good to be Lance.
Yeah, well, it's okay to be Lance.
It's good to be Lance.
Lance is still digging a lot of ditches and painting a lot of houses and fixing a lot of cars, so, you know.
Man, Lance, remember I brought you brought you a 71 Valiant or whatever, you know, A-body, and Scrappy towed it to your place with a dump truck.
Oh, yeah,
and that's when you were living on 3rd Street next to the Hells Angels house.
Yeah.
And, we show up, And the first thing, Scrappy jumps out of the car. I'll never forget this. It was such a moment because Scrappy was nuts and still is. And he jumps out of his dump truck that we were towing the A body all the way up El Camino from Belmont. Jumps out of the truck, doesn't even say hi to you, Lance. Says, "Can I use your bathroom? I got to take a shit." And naturally, I mean, right away, you just say no. I mean, you didn't even.
I remember that.
Yeah, and you just said no.
No.
You know, in such a way that was such a nice no. And Scrappy had to go behind some house, you know.
No, I remember that. I'm not going to have a guy named Scrappy soil my bathroom, you know. Yeah, I remember that. That was pretty funny. Where in the hell Scrappy now?
That proves you have standards, Lance. That's all.
That's right. That's right. Very, very few standards, but I have a few.
But standards nevertheless.
Yes. Never let Scrappy shit in your house. And then for those
my God, he'll move in and he won't move out, you know.
Whatever happened to him?
Oh, man, it's a whole other story for another show. But basically, he was living in Belmont in the back of a converted camper van, and still doing open mics. And then he quit comedy, and he just lived there for like 4 years in Belmont in the back of this lot. And his thing was meeting women on the internet in foreign countries and sending them money and then going to meet them after 3 or 4 years. So he's now stuck in the Philippines. He sent this Filipino woman money for about 5 years and then got a windfall from Uncle Sam for some bookkeeping error or whatever for his disability. You know, they underpaid him for 2 years. So he bought a ticket to the Philippines. She was a he, and there was no such woman. So he's now stuck in the Philippines.
Yeah,
and it was during their big earthquake, or I forgot, was it a flood they had there or whatever, a big storm. And I guess that the last I heard of him, I sent him $20 because he asked me for some money, and I haven't heard back. But
I hear he's dating Mann Act now. It's kind of interesting.
Well, when he gets to buy the Philippines, that $20 goes in the fund, and it's now heavily invested, and that could be your pension, Fred.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I mean, Scrappy and I did about 6 shows at the zoo, sold the zoo out one time on Christmas Eve, and then Scrappy self-destructed. I got us booked at Josie's Juice Joint, and at the time you had to be gay to perform there. But anyway, make a long story short, he
so you weren't gay until after this, right?
Well, it was funny because we did our set, and naturally, you know, they could tell I'm not gay, and my humor wasn't gay-oriented or anything, because our act was Scrappy doing his act, and then I'd come on stage and tear his props up and open his suitcase and dump it on the stage and cut him down and get them all pissed off. And that was our act. But afterwards, the manager of Josie's, I forgot her name, she came up to me and said, "Well, you're obviously not gay, and you're banned from the stage." And I go, "Well, you know, I happen to manage the Holy City Zoo. So should I institute that policy at our club?"
Yeah.
You fucker. I did Josie's.
And did you tell him the zoo no longer smells like vomit? And did you give Lance credit?
God, that was so nice of Lance to figure that one out, man. That was
showbiz. That's showbiz people with wonderful stories. Hey, you guys are terrific. I'm delighted to have you on. I'm going to close the segment because neither of you ever have heard the way, and I hope you promise me we do this on a semi-regular basis.
Oh, Lance, if you would, I would love to, and this time I won't talk so much. How about that?
Thank you. I appreciate being on, Ralph.
Ralph, I would love to. I would love to appear with Lance.
Will you come back, Lance?
Yes, sir, I shall.
Okay,
right
beautiful. Right on. And I'm going to publish this this segment with an episode that's coming out this Sunday night. You'll be delighted with the way it turned out because your enthusiasm really showed through, and I'm delighted. Fred, you've heard me before, but Lance, you haven't. I'm going to end the segment in this manner, where I implore the listeners and you guys too to keep your humor dry and your dreams wet. Keep your kids out of recruiting stations. Military recruiting stations are, repeat with me now, guys, bad. They suck.
Bad.
War sucks.
Bad.
Bad. Lance?
Not bad to the bone, but bad.
Pretty damn bad. And if you're thinking of really doing right by your kids, keep them off the laps of clerics, male clerics wearing dresses. Bad, equally bad. It's not a good idea. So that if you're looking for child care, look elsewhere than Father O'Brien, just to be on the safe side. And most importantly, keep on keeping on. Thanks, guys, for being here. We're going to close it out, and you promised to come back, so I'll hold you to it.
I promised to come back to plug the movie I'm in, Hey Monster, Hands Off My City, produced by Michael Meehan.
Thank you, Ralph. And remember, kids, no whitewater rafting.
No, okay.
God bless you, Lance.
All right, you guys.
And Fred, keep on fighting your fight. I don't want to end this on a negative
brother. I
note.
got a great. The news is it's in remission for now, and I'll have to go under chemo in about 4 years, anytime between next month and 4 years. But let's just keep our fingers crossed that it stays in.
They'll have that Obama thing care figured out by 4 years from now. That'll be perfect, Fred.
Hey, I just have to say the Obamacare covered California saved my life. That's a story for another time.
Good for you.
But it did.
God bless you.
It really did.
God bless
and
you.
I'm fighting every. Right now, I'm a box of fluffy ducks, as my hero Roddy Piper says. But I'm fighting the fight, man, forever forward. And God bless the taxpayers of California.
Nice.
All right. And God bless God, of course. We've had so many God blesses on one segment that God has made
Ralph.
a cameo appearance on.
With. And Lance, you're a hero. You're just one of my heroes. Thank you.
You're both Hoagies as far as I'm concerned. Which is Philadelphia heroes. Which
right. I'm a baloney hero.
All right, we're out of here, guys. Keep on keeping on.
Thanks, Ralph.
Lance, you still there?
Yeah. Well,
Lance, brother, hey, thanks for that call, man. You know, I mean, it came when I was really down. I really didn't want to call back right away because it took a while to start the fight and get my head right around this because it came such a shock.
Yeah.
Know?
Yeah.
It actually has a lot to do with softball.
Did you get sick? Did you feel
bad?
bad?
No, see, this is what happened. Well, you know me, I play softball forever. I mean, forever and ever and ever, a junkie. I was having trouble throwing from the outfield. This was about 9 months ago. And my throws were still fine, right on the money, no problem. But the pain, as soon as I let go of the ball, the pain under my arm was immense for 2 or 3 seconds. I mean, just like I was being stabbed. And I thought, hell, it's a rotocuff. It's about time. You know, after 50 years of throwing as hard as I have, it goes with the territory. I'll just play through it. So the first of the year kicked in. The Obamacare kicked in the first of the year, and they make you take they don't make you, they just suggest if it's Kaiser, you go through a physical. I took the physical. I said to the doc, I go, hey, this is what's going on, you know, when I play ball, because I picked out a sports-minded doctor, a sports medicine doctor, because you go on the website and you choose from all these doctors, you know. So to make a long story short, Lance, I showed her what was going on, and she said, well, raise your arm, and she said, your lymph gland is totally swollen. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even notice that. And she goes, we're going for an ultrasound right now. I mean, right then and there, we went straight to the ultrasound room. And sure enough, Lance, it was almost the size of a little bit smaller than a golf ball.
Right.
So from there, the next day, they had me take a biopsy of it, and then a cancer screening blood test, and then a bone marrow biopsy from my shoulder bone and then from my hip. And 2 weeks later, it all came out that that lymph gland did indeed have lymphoma in it. What's called mantle cell lymphoma, and 3 other lymph nodes in my body had it.
Yeah.
So the good news about it is one of the slowest moving lymphomas you could get. Extremely slow moving. I mean, a snail versus a cheetah, like normal.
Right.
This is a snail. So the plan of action is that they left it up to me. They said, okay, you could go chemo right now for 6 months, once a week, really light strength chemo, or you could wait for it to come back worse, which it's going to. That's what Mantell is famous for. It always comes back. Well, why take chemo twice in 5 or 4 years when you could just take it once?
No, I agree.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
The other thing is everything changes. All the technology changes so fast that in 4 years they could have, who knows?
Yeah, and that's my thinking. So I'm disabled for 6 months. I can't work full time, so I can work part time, which is cool, and I'll get the disability because I paid into it, and I'll actually make more money, and so it's all going to work out, Lance. It's just all going to work out. It took me a week to wrap my head around it. Nobody likes to hear you got cancer. But the good news, the extra good news is when they gave me that blood screening test, if you get 50% on all 8 categories, that's perfect. I got 50% on all 8 categories. So it didn't travel anywhere in my body, and it's near no major organs. So God blessed me. He really did.
I went to the doctor the other day, and they were giving me it was a physical, and he's feeling around, and he said, "Geez, what's this ugly lump on your neck?" And then he said, "Oh, it's your head." So,
you had me going for a second, Lance. God damn it!
It's
I love you, brother.
Head.
You got me perfect. Just then, my whole stomach went.
It's just your head. It's all right. Ralph, are you there still? Is Ralph there?
She just does. Hey, Molly Bravis sends her love.
Well, tell Molly that I love her too. How's she
Molly's
doing?
a sweetheart, man. She's my sweetie. I've known Molly since she was 6 years old.
I think I've seen pictures of you guys when you were little kids.
Yeah, we go back because I'm.
Well, tell her, hey, I see her every once in a while when she's down here, and we try and keep in touch. I see Kramer every now and again.
Yeah, it was his birthday the other day.
Huh?
It was his birthday the other day.
Yeah, yesterday, I think.
61. Yeah,
but he's doing okay. He had some kind of heart fucking bypass.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And he spent time in the Who Scout, too.
Well, that was a long time ago. So.
Yeah, that man's had a life.
Yeah, he has. It's weird. It's weird. You see people. I've had a lot of people leave me over the past couple of years, and I kind of started with them.
We're at that age, brother. We're at that age. You get over 50, you start losing people in your life, and it's horrible. But you just
I'm not quite
broken and
like I tell the kids, I'm not quite at that point yet. No, I know, man. Everybody, problems here, problems there. So I'm knock on wood. That's my one redeeming quality is that I have, except for I'm like in perfect health. My dad's 91, and
wow.
I was talking to him the other day, and he was talking about doctors, and I was talking about our family doctor that I had when I was a kid. His name was Dr. Ritchie, and I went to Dr. Ritchie probably when I was in the 7th grade, and then he had a heart attack or a stroke or something, and that was the end of Dr. Ritchie. And I told my dad, I haven't had a fucking doctor since Dr. Ritchie. And he looked at me, and he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, man, what do I need one for? I haven't had anything wrong with me, so I'm happy about that.
Get it checked up. You got to get on Covered California. It's cheap. I mean, if you could get through on the website and put up with all the red tape they need, it is so. It saved my life. It saved my life.
I just remember maybe the source isn't very good, but I just always remember what Warren Thomas told me. He said, don't go to doctors. They'll find something wrong with you. And I'm a little paranoid about it. If I get hurt, I'll go to the emergency room, but the blessing for me also is that I haven't been able to. I got to stay healthy. I can't get hurt, that was the whole time we were over there in Spain, and then all this jousting and working with horses and doing all this shit. And I'm constantly telling myself, I can't afford to get hurt. I can't, because I do everything under the table. So if I get hurt...
Well, that's why the Covered California is perfect for you. If you have no record of income, you'll probably pay $10 a month. If you remember that comic, Rebecca Kennedy, he's only paying, I think, $15 or $10 a month now.
Yeah. Well, I'm not on any databases, so I'm just trying to, I'm trying to stay out.
I got you. Hey, nothing wrong. I was the same way up until about 4 years ago.
That's my whole deal. And if I gotta go, I'll pull out the old Visa and I'll say, put it on the card, boys. So we'll see.
There you
go.
So what are you driving now? You driving any muscle cars or?
No, I'm just driving an old van, and boy, I put a lot of miles on that thing. I've been everywhere, Freddie. I've been all since 2008. I've been, we travel all summer, and we used to travel spring, summer, and then a little bit in the fall. But man, we jousted all from basically west of the Mississippi, all over the fucking place.
Geez, yeah, I follow you on Facebook. I mean, I'm so jealous. There must be so many women. It must be amazing.
Well, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I have a lot of fun. Of course, it's not the free for all days that it used to be, but it definitely is a good. That's my deal. I guess is that if I can't be making a lot of money, I'm gonna have to have fun. If you're
not the only one. I'm the same way. That's why I just play a bunch of softball, which this kind of stuff sucks because I can't play for. I can't play competitive ball. I can play co-ed, but I can't play the tournament ball that I've been playing for 15 years. I can't do that now until the doctor okays.
Here's a funny one for you, Freddie. I hang out in Studio City down here. I go to this little park called Beeman Park, and they have these workout machines that are like you use your body weight. The workout machines, they have a little track. So I go over there in a basketball court. So I go over and work out. And guess who lives right across the street from the park? And I see their big van there every time I go over there. The King and his court.
Oh, my God, he finally died, but there's another guy, I think one of his sons or brother. Somebody took his place. Yeah.
Yeah, and they got the van. The van's parked right across the street. I'll have to take a picture of it, and I'll send it to you, but it's so funny.
That's cool. Let me tell you my story about him. When I was doorman at the zoo, they came into town for the usual tour, the Bay, they hit the Bay Area, and I got selected to play on a team against him. I got a hit against him. That's probably my claim to fame. I got a ground ball hit up the middle that he couldn't stop.
That's a nice.
You know why?
Good claim to fame.
You know why? I got into I figured he has such pinpoint control. He's going to throw it low to me because I'm a little guy. I'm going to get into the Pete Rose batting stance and swing level. And I'm a normal right-handed batter. I remember like it was yesterday. I go, I'm going to go up against him lefty, because his ball fades into a righty, because I watched him. I've watched that guy for years on Wide World of Sports, and, and so I watched, I didn't start the game against him. It was only a 3-inning game. They changed the team after an inning and a half. So I stood behind home plate and watched him, and his ball was going into the right-handed batter. So I said, lefty, Pete Rose swing, get way down, make my strike zone as little as possible, and he's still going to pinpoint it. And he did. And I hit a hard ground ball right up the middle. He was so surprised he couldn't catch it. And then my next time up, I think you know what he did to me.
There you go.
Struck me out on 3 straight, so fast pitches, Lance, I could not believe it.
No, it's crazy how fast those are, too. Who else do you see up there? Bossier? You see Bossier at all?
I see Aunt Bessie all the time. He does a thing in Berkeley called the Marsh Jam, and it's an improv show. He's doing that. He's working at a convention union that sets up conventions at the trade show place where I used to work with Dennis Egan. He's there, and I see him all the time. He only lives 2 blocks from me.
Cool. Say hey, give him a shout.
Oh, I will. I go to Comedy Day each year. As a matter of fact, Hutch was in town the other day. I missed him, but he comes in and out of town occasionally. I saw Marty Maceda at Comedy Day.
Nice.
I see Meehan all the time. I'm involved in his movie, Hey Monster, Hands Off My City. And he said anytime you're in the city, it's just too bad you didn't live here, because there was a part of a lumberjack that you would have been perfect for.
Yeah, I'm down here, man. I'm actually, I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm moving back to. I'm trying to go to Spain again this fall, or not this fall, but in June, and maybe go work.
Oh, you should, Lance.
I can go work. Yeah, because you know what? I'm kind of bored. It was a real slow year for me with both the jousting and with show business. You know, and I got kind of all my shit together with show business, but, you know, part of the weird thing down here now is that there's so many things that aren't shot here anymore. You know, they're making money, but they're shooting shit in Atlanta, Vancouver, North Carolina, all these other places. So
really, I'd never think that.
Slow, yeah. All the actors that I know, we're all kind of walking around going, "Gee, many crickets." And then I got this manager woman, and she was saying that auditions are like gold. And then I was talking to another guy, and he's like, "Yeah, man, they're just giving shit to people they know." So I don't know, you know. I'm not a kid anymore. And Spain was
glad
great.
you got on Lopez. You know, that's good.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, no, it was real good, and you know, and I got good tape out of it, and it kind of, I mean, in a certain way, it was like, okay, well, you don't suck, you know, you're not horrible, you did a good job, so, you know, and you just can't, and you never know in this town. All it takes is just one person to say yes. So.
Oh hell! Look at Robin. Look at Robin. Gary Marshall saw him, and the rest was history.
Yeah. So and
just keep plugging away.
Yeah, you know. No, I do, and it doesn't. It kind of doesn't matter in a certain way how old you are, because you know they don't know how old you are.
No, it doesn't.
And
you know, it doesn't. I mean, I'm still friends with Steve Carey. He's down in L.A., as you know. Lazy as anybody. I mean, just so lazy. I love him like a brother. You know, I love him like the brother I never had. But work ethic, I just don't have any respect for him, because he's so lazy.
Is he tending bar or something?
He's do you remember the episode of The Sopranos where Lauren Bacall got punched? He's at that place. I think it's called the Hilton. He's downstairs in the Hilton bar.
Right,
and he just won't do anything else. I mean, you know, he maybe works 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week of that, but I mean, I always bug him. I'm like, you're in L.A., write more, go to auditions, go to voiceovers, do something, you know, instead of just sitting on your ass, living off your mom, you know?
I mean, I can understand, because a lot of people gave up. I mean, I'm actually proud of myself in a lot of ways, because I'm still banging away at it, and a lot of people, I mean, I know fucking probably 30 comics who have just, you know, given up, and they're not even doing stand-up anymore, they're not doing anything, so, you know, but I do understand, too, because it is difficult, and there's no gigs, and the road has died, and writing gigs are like, you know, we were talking about that the other day. When I first came down here, man, there was all kinds of shit going on. It just, there was a vibrance in town. And like we were talking about the different lots, like the Warner lot had ER, and it was like that was a whole, it was like a monster in town. You know, people are doing guest spots, people got extra work, people are writing scripts. I mean, you know, and there was
I can imagine
10 shows like that. And now, I mean, fuck, there's you know, the hottest shows on TV are not shot in L.A. You know, the zombie one is down in Atlanta. I don't even know. You know, I don't even know what the sitcom is anymore. So.
God, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't mean to cut Steve down so bad, but he just doesn't have any initiative to do anything. Like, he started doing comedy, and got mad because he was always the oldest person there. And I'm like, well, big deal. So what? You know.
Yeah.
So he stopped. You know?
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, that's just, you know, I just want to see him do better for himself. But, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So.
You do what you do. That's all you can do.
Yes, sir.
So.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm glad we retouched. And, you know, if we could make this a permanent thing or just semi-permanent with Ralph, that's great. I mean, you know, maybe Ralph could also get, like, maybe, I'd love to have Marty and you on. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Marty in a while.
Maybe Ray.
Yeah,
Ray
like I saw Ray just the other day on St. Patrick's Day. I went over to his house and hung out, and
that's great. How's
he
doing?
He's good.
He has kids.
He's got 3 kids.
No.
He's kind of
Ray.
Yeah. Yeah. He's married, got 3 kids, owns a house. He's like a regular working writer, and he's been working quite a bit, but. Those guys in a certain way they're way more under the gun than some of the rest of us because.
Oh, of course, they have to produce it or they're fired.
Yeah, because they always kind of got the, and like he was saying, he used to be a guy that would get hired, and now he's a guy that they, he's one of the older dudes, and they fucking get rid of him. And part of it is because of our, all this bullshit in our culture now where they don't want to pay people any money. And there's, in Hollywood, there's a constant flow of people who will take way less than,
Of course. They're killing it for everybody.
Somebody else is making. Yeah, so
that's a shame.
But,
it is. Damn, man, 3 kids. God, I'll never forget how he ruined our show, our Christmas show at the Ian Christmas show. In Emeryville by insisting on showing scenes from Mississippi Burning, and it was a totally black audience.
Yeah,
oh, boy, did I slink out of that club back into my car real fast.
Yes, I remember that. No, it's amazing how much time has gone by. It's gone by pretty fast. I know that much.
Oh, God, Lance,
it's
like it was yesterday.
It was yesterday.
I loved the zoo was handed to me on a silver platter after Bauman left because it was Marty, Laura St. James, Steve, Carey, and myself as a 4-headed manager. And I knew it wouldn't last that way. Laura I caught stealing the very first night we were all in charge. So fired, gone. And then it was Marty, and Marty just didn't want to do it. He didn't want to boss other comics around. So after a week, he just said, forget it. And Steve, God bless him, got fired by Bob because he wasn't doing the glasses. He wasn't washing glasses. He'd show up the next day, or Janice would show up the next day and have to do all the glasses from the night before. And that was him doing. And then Bob said, well, Fred, do I have to find somebody or can you do it? And I'll go, yeah, I'll do it. You don't even have to pay me that much because I was selling cars like you, buying Toyotas, selling them, selling pot and cleaning houses during the day. So, I had my income, and I loved it. I loved it.
It was just it's sad. It's still sad, I think, for a lot of people, the way that the whole comedy scene, and it wasn't just San Francisco, it was everywhere. It just died. It really
Cable killed us. Why go out, pay for parking, pay for dinner, pay for the comedy club, pay for drinks, the tips and all that, when you could turn on whatever the comedy, VH1 or MTV that was showing stand-up comedy at home. And the same people that you'd see at open mics almost. And better. Why? It killed us.
They really crushed it. And I watch some of these guys now. It was like I was telling somebody the other day, the number 1 comic in America is Russell Peters. Do you know who Russell Peters is?
No, I wouldn't know him if he was next to
No, nobody does. He's this Indian guy. He's a guy from India. Russell fucking Peters is the number 1.
No, you're kidding me.
Yes, no, I'm not kidding at all. No, it's weird. So, it kind of started with Dane Cook and some of these other guys, and I don't even know who the fuck they are.
No, I don't either. I know Ellen DeGeneres. When I was a door person at the other cafe, she was in that Showtime's Most Funniest Person in America contest. And I remember her from back then. I just feel so old, because all these guys, the big name comics from back then went on to movies, Dana Carvey, Rob Schneider. But Schneider was in the right place at the right time, and I'm always happy for him. Always. He always treated me good,
Yeah. Well, no,
there's a lot of people.
There was a lot of guys that were on the fast track before they even Before they even got up on stage, they were on the fast track, and I've come to realize that over the years. Yeah, what's very interesting is you start looking up their bios and seeing who their families were and seeing what their background is, and it's like, oh, okay, really? Oh, gee, I wonder why he's. Oh, I wonder what. Yeah. Oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, that's all. Yep. I was very amused that Louis C.K. got all freaked out because somebody was making fun of him and what his last name is and who he is. And I ask people that all the time. I'm like, here's a guy who's on national television, and we don't even know his fucking last name. We don't know his last name. You look it up, you can't find his last name. And I know why. It's because there's something sinister in his family background, and they won't.
Well, I mean, it will never be like it was. We were blessed, especially you. I mean, I meant what I said on the show. When you were at the zoo, that's when it was its heyday. 2 or 3 years before you left. I mean, you had, oh, my God. I mean, Bob Goldthwait would show up. Robin would be there constantly. Jim Napopoulos, the Knot Man. I mean, all these guys I can start naming that were truly funny acts. Paula Poundstone, Carey Snow.
It was hopping. It was hopping and jumping.
Yeah, and when
too bad it went
was just the times. Something had to change, and
it was
funny because I was living with Steve before I came out for softball, and I'd see him go to his gigs, and I wasn't the least bit interested in the stand-up at all, not at all. And he showed up home one day on a Monday with a cut-up face, and I go, "What the fuck? Who punched you? Where is he?" He goes, No, Fred, I was playing softball, and I didn't catch the ball at home plate with my mitt. I caught it with my face. And I'm like, oh, shit, Steve, come on, buddy. I had to take him to the hospital, get him stitched up. And he goes, I want you to show up. You could show up. I'll get you in the game. That way I don't have to play. You could take my place. And the rest is just history, I mean, I fell in love with Carol Riccuti. I mean, I saw her changing. Behind one of the trees, and huge titties, and she saw me looking at her, and she just smiled and kept changing. That was it. The arrow hit me. So I was there every Monday, but she was with Guido at the time. And, but anyway, make a long story short, the rest is history. But there was such fun times.
It was a good time. That's my deal. It's like, just keep moving forward, man. I don't like living in the past. So that's
forever forward.
Forever forward, man. I get tired of these fuckers who give up and, all this other crap. I don't dig it.
Don't give up. Follow your dream.
You got to keep fighting. Yep. Yeah, and and I figure if you give up, they win. That's the way I look at it.
That's right.
Like,
fighting my whole life. What's cancer? Just another fucking fight.
Yeah.
That's just,
but
and one of the things I admire is Ralph, and then this other podcast I do, Danny Ducci. I don't know if you've heard of him. Horrible comic. I mean, look, I'll call it like I see it. Just horrible. But he keeps doing it. He's been doing it for like 20 years and just keeps doing it. Doesn't quit, and he has my total respect. I mean, I've done his podcast about 3 or 4 times, and I'll keep doing it whenever he wants me on, just for whatever reason, but just because he sticks to it. I admired that at the zoo, I mean,
and you got to keep doing it. I'm actually thinking about starting doing stand-up again, just to irritate people.
You should, Lance. You had great material. Dig out your Bible from the 80s and 90s, and use your material.
Well, I did. I was hosting January. Thomas, Warren's wife. We had a show in Hollywood. And every Wednesday night, and I was the host, and it was great.
How did that
and it was great. It was a lot of fun, and that was the other weird thing for me is I've done a bunch of stand-up probably in the past 5 years, and it's so easy. It's so easy, man. Because everybody else kind of sucks, and I don't even worry about shit. You just go. I just go up with I used to go up every night with just a little topic list and basically just riff on stuff for a half an hour, And I was getting huge laughs. People coming up to me afterwards going, "Gee, man, you said you do that bit all the time." I'm like, "No, I just, I'm just talking to you people." So, it's easy. But then the weird thing down in L.A. is, and I was doing the open mic circuit after that, and then you go out to these open mics and you start doing it, and then the fucking person who runs the open mic gets pissed off at you because they go, "Oh, you're a professional. You're a road comic." Well, yeah,
right,
I've been working for many years, so then they won't give you any more time because, you can work on the road, cocksuckers. So it's a little.
Well, then you just start your own open mic and host it, and you can do a half hour.
That's the easiest thing. So we've been kind of banging around that, and I got to get through this. I got the other fair is going down here for the next 8 weeks, so I'm happy to be working, and I got to fill my I got to get the coffers filled, and
gotcha.
So I'll make some kind of call after 8 weeks and see what happens. I'm a fucking gypsy.
The same way. You just got to do what you like to do. I mean, since I can't play softball for 2 months at least, I'm going to go back to restoring my '68 Fury wagon. I got everything I need now for it: the rug, the headliner.
Nice.
The only thing I'm looking for is the chrome piece that wraps around the cluster of the speedometer. That's really hard to find because they just naturally cracked after.
Yeah, a lot away. Yeah.
Yeah,
well, there you go.
So
Good luck with that. And I'm glad you're healthy. Stay healthy.
Me too. I mean, I'll always have this cancer in me, but let's just pray that it just stays in remission for another 3 or 4 years. If it doesn't, I'll take the chemo right away. But for now, I don't have to. So.
Yeah,
but it's great touching base with you, man, and I'll look forward to talking to you again, especially with.
We'll keep in touch.
Hey, go Giants!
Go Giants! I was watching them the other night against the A's. I guess it's more I can hit home runs, is what they're saying.
Jesus. The guy can't field worth crap, but
I know.
That's a hard park. That's a hard park, and he hasn't had too many chances there. So what they're saying is they're going to hit him about 200 flies a day when they're at home, and he'll get used to it. Because he is, anybody that is on a major league roster, I mean, let's face it, Lance, is talented.
Well, they better be able to do something.
Yeah. And they're saying, he just needs some practice, and he just needs to find his stroke a little better. But we have a couple really good backups, that guy Juan Perez, I think his name is, and then the other guy we've had forever. So start him for 5-6 innings and throw the little guys in there. And I'll tell you, our pitching looks good.
The pitching looks good. I watched Tim Hudson. I thought he looked great. He gave up some runs, but I thought he had good stuff,
Oh, my God, he looks great. Sabian did good with him. And it's looking good. I'm not scared of the Dodgers, but if they gel a little bit more, I'll start being scared of them. So let's hope they gel.
Well, and I watch the Dodgers so much because I'm down here. And
What
last year when what's-his-name came off the DL, and all of a sudden and Puig came over, and all of a sudden they just looked unstoppable, and I kept telling everyone they're on the fucking juice, that they're juicing. And, of course, everybody ha-ha'd. And then I'm reading the newspaper a couple weeks in, and I noticed, hitting instructor Mark McGuire. I'm like, okay, geez, they're all juicing. That whole that whole team last year was on the juice, and they let it go because of that huge television deal that they made. So and I think this year I don't think they're going to be able to do it because they failed.
Kemp is healthy, and Puig learning how to be a major leaguer. The guy has talent, but he just doesn't have the head to go with it. And if I was a National League pitchers, I'd just brush them back each fucking at bat. Every first at bat, brush them back.
I wouldn't throw him a strike. I would not throw him a strike because he'll fucking swing at anything. So, I wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed.
We went through that with Barry here, as you know. Nobody was throwing him strikes. The Cardinals, one homestand threw him, I think, 3 strikes for
Well, that was one of my favorite stats with Barry was the 1 year he had more walks than anyone else, and he also hit more home runs than anyone else. He hit the ball like every 3 times it was thrown to him, he would hit the ball. And,
yeah.
You know, I'm still a big Barry supporter.
Yep, same here. He deserves the Hall of Fame. You know.
No, and I was reading about. I wanted to find out about steroids, so I did a little research, and they've been around forever, man. They've been around. They were using them in the 50s, so
yes.
You know, it's just that nobody knew about it. And everybody's been on the fucking. They've been on them for. You know, they were invented after World War I.
Yeah, look at Willie and the gang back in the 60s, greenies and reds, and you know, they were taking stuff.
Thank you. Everybody was using something. So.
Yeah, but you know. Well, look, buddy, I'll let you go here. My battery's about dead, but I love talking to you.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks for your phone call, Lance. I really
good to talk to you, Freddie. I'm glad you're beating this fucking thing.
Thanks, buddy.
Keep up the fight. Keep up the fight. And say hi to Mom.
Oh, I will. It's up to me. When I come down to L.A. in a couple months, I'll look you up.
All right, do it.
I should be there in about a month. So to see Steve, I talk some sense.
I'll be here. I'll be here at least till June. All right,
bro.
good to talk to you. See ya.
Take care.